LoveLore Library. Chapter 330. Chapter 330, Never See Again, yeah. Chi-Chi nodded. Undress. What are you thinking about? Lin-Yi glared at the cool girl and barked at her. Undress. Undress. You need more. Chi-Chi wasn't sure what to say. Just open the shoulder. Lin-Yi frowned. I've seen what I needed to see last time. I'm not interested in someone who's always trying to kill me. Who cares? A trace of annoyance appeared on Chi-Chi's cool face, but she still pulled her collar down, revealing her snow-white shoulder. There was a bloody hole on her shoulder, especially eye-catching. It was the mark of a bullet. Cut the crap. Lin-Yi looked at the girl's shoulder and used his dagger to make a light cut. With a flick, a bullet flew out and landed on the car seat. Lin-Yi took out some herbs he made from his pocket and sprinkled it on the girl's wound. Don't wear your clothes, it'll be fine in a bit. Oh. Her wound had miraculously healed under Lin-Yi's care, and new flesh had grown out that very night. Chi-Chi trusted Lin-Yi's skills very much. Most importantly, it didn't leave any scars. Chi-Chi thought that it was quite miraculous. She was an assassin, and getting injured was a common occurrence. But she was still a girl, she cared about the scars on her skin, and Lin-Yi's herbs seemed to be able to remove any scars. He'd prepared this for himself. He'd always bring some with him whenever he went on a mission, but this mission wasn't dangerous at all. He'd thought that he wouldn't need it, but it turned out that he'd be using it on this cool girl. After dealing with the wound on the girl's shoulder, Lin-Yi turned to the girl's calves. Chi-Chi had rolled up her pants a long time ago. Lin-Yi slashed and flicked, and the bullet flew out. He quickly sprinkled some herbs on it, and the bleeding stopped. Alright, don't do dangerous things like this again. You're not suited to be an assassin. You're really cool, and you look like a little assassin, but assassins aren't always cool, just like me. Lin-Yi said seriously to the girl. You. Chi-Chi's eyes went wide. Weren't assassins supposed to be cool? Her mother was always cool at home, cold, and only smiling when she saw her father. Alright, I'll send you back. Kanhee Hotel, right? Lead the way. Lin-Yi didn't give Chi-Chi a chance to say anything as he turned to the driver and started the car. Go straight, then turn right. Chi-Chi could only give Lin-Yi directions, a troubled look on her face. Was she really not suited to be an assassin? This big liar must be talking nonsense. Yes, he must be afraid that she'd get stronger and come back to kill him. That had to be it. Lin-Yi, huh? Just you wait, I'll surpass you sooner or later. You do remember the way. You're qualified to be an assassin. It was rare for Lin-Yi to praise the girl, and Chi-Chi was just about to cheer when Lin-Yi said, but you're more suited to be a tour guide or a taxi driver. You. Chi-Chi was getting pissed off. Wasn't this guy just saying that she wasn't qualified to be an assassin? Had he never failed a mission before? Hey, what are you doing there tonight? Don't tell me you've never failed a mission before. Chi-Chi asked, unsatisfied. I'm going to bring someone out. You've seen him already. Lin-Yi didn't hide anything. As for failure, I'm sorry, but I really want to taste it. Bullshit. Chi-Chi's face flashed with suspicion. Hey, that herb of yours is pretty good. Can you give me some? Are you the one who's trying to kill me today? Lin-Yi looked at the girl, amused, and teased her. Then I'll buy it with money, alright? How much is it? I'll give you the money. Chi-Chi was getting a little embarrassed by Lin-Yi's question. I made it myself, it's priceless. Lin-Yi looked at the girl. But, since you have the ring on your finger, I'll give you the remaining half. Lin-Yi tossed the half bottle of herbs to the cool girl. Thank you. Chi-Chi was pleased. Lin-Yi was right, this was a priceless treasure. Don't think you can get hurt just because you have this potion, you should just stay at home. Being an assassin doesn't suit you. He got out of the car and bought a set of casual clothes from a convenience store next to the hotel, handing it to the cool girl when he got back. Chi-Chi wanted to retaliate at Lin Yi's insults, but Lin Yi had gotten out of the car. She didn't know what Lin Yi was up to, but Lin Yi was already back. Put it on and go up yourself, Lin Yi said. Chi-Chi wanted to argue with Lin Yi, but seeing how thoughtful Lin Yi was, even buying clothes for her, Chi-Chi felt touched. She couldn't speak anymore. I'm going, bye. Chi-Chi got out of the car, feeling that the wound on her leg wasn't hurting anymore. It seemed that Lin Yi's herbs were really effective. It'd be best if we don't see each other again. I won't save you if you die next time, so troublesome. Lin Yi waved his hand helplessly and drove off. Chi-Chi stomped her foot on the ground, pissed off. But stomping her foot pulled at her wound, almost causing her to cry out in pain. She didn't dare stomp her foot again, and carefully made her way back to the hotel. What Chi-Chi was puzzled, where was Grandpa Mubei? Didn't he say he was waiting for her in front of the Blue Water HQ? How come she didn't see him when she came out? Plus, why didn't Grandpa Mubei stop her when Lin Yi brought her into the car? In actuality, Chi-Chi really did accuse Tombstone wrongly. Tombstone had been waiting at the factory's entrance the whole time, and was about to charge in when he saw that something was wrong when Lin Yi grabbed Chi-Chi and ran out first. After making sure that it was Lin Yi who brought the miss away, Mubei returned to the hotel with peace of mind. After all, Lin Yi was the pride and joy of the organization's leader. With him there, Mubei had nothing to worry about. Chapter 331. A calm response. Lin Yi only remembered that he'd given his room card to Jinbiao when he got back to his room, so he knocked on the door. But there was no response from the room, not even the slightest movement. Lin Yi frowned. Xie Jinbiao wasn't back yet. Or was he taken away? Jinbiao. Lin Yi called out. Bro. This time, there was some movement in the room. Then, the door opened, revealing Xie Jinbiao's pale and thin face. The lights in the room weren't even turned on. It was completely dark. Why didn't you turn on the lights? Lin Yi walked in and closed the door behind him. I didn't dare. Someone knocked on the door, I think it was a waiter, but I didn't dare make a sound or turn on the light. I was scared that the Blue Water would find me and kill me. Jinbiao said weakly. Bro, you're strong, you're not afraid of them, but I'm not. I can't fight them, I'd die if I saw them. So for safety's sake, I pretended that there was no one in the room, just air. Lin Yi was speechless. As powerful as the Blue Water were in this city, there was no reason for them to search hotel after hotel, room after room. They wouldn't have anything else to do if they did that. Pack up, we're leaving now. Lin Yi wasn't in the mood to stay any longer now that his business was done. Falbert had booked a ticket for tonight, though he could always change it if he couldn't finish the mission tonight. Falbert booked 2 return tickets, one for Lin Yi and the other under Jinbiao's name. Guangbua, on the other hand, was quite thorough in his preparations. He guessed that his son didn't have his ID on him, so he made a new one for Lin Yi. Jinbiao had already showered, but his clothes were a little dirty. He didn't need to prepare much, so he went downstairs with Lin Yi. Jinbiao got into the car from the back while Lin Yi checked out at the front desk. A couple of Blue Water members barged into the lobby just as they were checking out, barking at the front desk. Have you seen 2 Blue Water members with an injured woman in black? No. The waiter was shocked and quickly replied. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of them, however. Lin Yi's hat was pulled down really low back at the repair shop, so they couldn't have seen his face at all. They probably didn't even notice that the girl was an Asian, let alone himself. Lin Yi acted a little scared as he turned to the waiter. Give me the deposit first. I'm leaving. The waitress returned the deposit and ID to Lin Yi, who took them and ran off without a backward glance. The Blue Water members who'd rushed in looked at Lin Yi with disdain. Coward! The other Blue Water members laughed as well. Let's go. Let's go check out the next hotel. Fuck, I don't know who sent an assassin to kill the leader of Charlton. But we're the second leader's men, it's better if he's dead. We can't rest for the next few nights though, we still have to find the killer. The waiter watched in horror as the Blue Water members left before letting out a sigh of relief. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had long since arrived at the parking lot. He got into his car and headed for the airport. Of the two blue caps in the car, one was thrown away, while the other was put on Lin Yi's head. Bro. You. Why are you still wearing that hat? Jin Biao jumped in fright. The Blue Water members were looking for him and Lin Yi, wasn't that unnecessary? Shut up. Lin Yi glared at Jin Biao. Sit still if you don't want to die. Jin Biao didn't dare say anything else, but he was still a little puzzled. His bro wasn't a reckless person, so why was he doing this? The car drove towards the exit of the city, but at the exit, someone had set up a roadblock to stop all the cars leaving the city. Only a small number of cars were allowed to pass, while the rest were all parked there. Some were anxiously waiting for something, while others turned around and went back. Lin Yi didn't park his car on the side of the road like the rest, driving straight towards the roadblock. Bro, you're going to charge through the roadblock. There's so many of them, don't do anything stupid. Jin Biao was starting to get a little scared. Lin Yi turned to glare at him coldly, and Jin Biao quickly shut his mouth. Lin Yi hadn't let him speak, but now he'd spoken up. He shouldn't have doubted his bro's abilities, he definitely had a way. Jin Biao comforted himself. Stop the car. Lin Yi's car was about to reach the roadblock when the Blue Water members flashed their flashlights at him, gesturing for him to stop. Lin Yi stopped the car, and the Blue Water members surrounded him. Get out. What are you doing? Don't you know the Blue Water is on lockdown? You're from the Blue Water. Raise your head, how come I don't recognize you? Bro, I'd like to ask, what's going on up ahead? Why is the road on lockdown? Lin Yi asked carefully. Why are you asking so many questions? I'm asking you, what do you do, and where did you get that hat? The Blue Water member barked at Lin Yi. Bro, I bought this car at the Blue Water's repair shop today, and the hat was a gift from York bro. I bought it from him, he said no one in Blue City would bother me as long as I wore the hat. Lin Yi explained carefully. Oh. You said you bought the car from us. The Blue Water member nodded, turning to another Blue Water member not too far away. Boss, there's a guy here saying he bought his car from us, that York sold it to him, and that hat was a gift from him too. Then give York a call. Let him go if he's the one, arrest him if he's not. The leader was checking other cars, and didn't have time to waste with the Blue Water members. He waved his hand and left. Wait a bit then. The Blue Water member's attitude was a lot friendlier now. The person in front of him might be a Blue Water customer, after all. Chapter 332. Chapter 332. Return safely. York and Lao Zi were both members of the Blue Water Mafia, but there were thousands of them in the Mafia. They'd only met each other briefly, that was all. But they all knew of this person's existence. There's something I'd like to confirm with you. There's a guy who said he bought a car from you today, wearing a baseball cap with the Blue Water logo. Do you know him? Lao Zi asked. Oh. There is indeed such a person, a tourist from the east. I sold him an old Santana. If it's him, there should be no problem. York thought about it and said, "Why don't you give him the phone? I'll confirm it again." "Sure." Lawsy thought that it was better to be safe than sorry, so he passed the phone to Lin Yi. "You talk to York." "York bro, it's me," Lin Yi said with a wide smile. "Well, I just bought a car and was about to drive it back, didn't I? But I got stopped at the city gates. I don't know what's going on." "Oh, it's you. Alright, no problem. Give the phone to Lawsy, I'll talk to him." York was relieved after confirming that it was indeed the guy who'd bought the car. "Alright." Lin Yi handed the phone back to Lawsy. "York bro wants to talk to you." Lawsy took the phone and said a few words before nodding to Lin Yi. "Alright, you can go now. I'm Lawsy, you can look for me if you want a car in the future." Lawsy was starting to get business. "No problem, Lawsy bro." Lin Yi nodded. "Look for you to buy a car. Maybe in my next life." He got back in the car, and the driver let him off without a hitch as he sped out of Blue City. Jinbiao, sitting in the passenger seat, was dumbfounded. They'd let him go just like that. There were so many cars around, and they wouldn't let him go. Lin Yi had said a few words, and all he had to do was answer a phone call. Of course, Xia Jinbiao had learned his lesson and didn't dare to ask any random questions. Lin Yi didn't bother explaining. He'd seen the Blue Water members looking for someone in the hotel, and he'd expected to see them at the exit as well. He'd put on the Blue Water hat and come up with an excuse, using York's name to get out of the city. Lin Yi took off his hat and tossed it out after leaving the city. It was no longer useful outside Blue Water territory, and it'd be even more troublesome if someone misunderstood. Arriving at the airport unimpeded, Lin Yi directly left the car in the airport parking lot, not even taking out the key. "Let's go. Do you still want to stay here?" Lin Yi saw Xia Jinbiao looking at the airport in a trance, and immediately scolded him. "And no, bro, I'm just looking at this sad place. Who knows, I might never come back here again." Jinbiao sighed as he followed Lin Yi into the airport. The plane soared into the sky. Along the way, Xia Jinbiao was silent. No one knew what he was thinking, but as they were changing planes in Beijing, Xia Jinbiao carefully asked, "Big brother, how much did my dad give you? All of his assets?" Lin Yi replied faintly. "He'll be left with nothing after you go back." "Oh." Jinbiao nodded. He was a bit depressed, but didn't say anything. As far as he was concerned, the price was very reasonable. Lin Yi's skills were worth the price. His entire family's assets didn't even add up to 100 million USD, so he'd gotten the better end of the deal. Otherwise, his father would be in a lot of debt. Jinbiao's attitude surprised Lin Yi. He didn't cry or make a fuss, and he seemed to have accepted the fact. Did this guy learn? In fact, after this thrilling experience, Jinbiao also figured out some things. When he had money, he was a rich kid, but when he had no money, he was nothing. The plane landed safely on the ground, and they were home. Lin Yi didn't feel anything, but Jinbiao was emotional, and his body was trembling with excitement. "Are you addicted to drugs?" Lin Yi glanced at him. "No, I'm just a little excited. I've quit." Jinbiao was a little embarrassed. "Quit?" Lin Yi was stunned. "This kid can quit drugs. I was locked up for 2 months. Who would give me drugs if I had no money?" "It was quite uncomfortable at first, but I got over it later," Jinbiao explained with some embarrassment. Lin Yi nodded and didn't say anything. In a situation like Jinbiao's, it was possible for him to quit drugs completely, but he was afraid that he'd be addicted to drugs again in the future. However, this wasn't Lin Yi's responsibility. Lin Yi brought him back, so he fulfilled his promise. At the airport, Faubert's car didn't come to pick them up. Lin Yi didn't tell him the exact time of his return. The ticket could be changed, so the time of his return depended on whether Lin Yi's mission was successful or not. After leaving the airport, Lin Yi flagged down a taxi and got in with Jin Biao. Go to Qianhua Waterfront District, Lin Yi ordered the taxi driver. Okay. The taxi driver nodded and started the car. It was a little strange. Lin Yi was wearing ordinary clothes, but the kid in the back looked like he escaped from a refugee camp. His clothes were tattered, and he was skinny like a heavy smoker. These two people are going to Qianhua Waterfront. That's where the rich live. He didn't ask anything, after all, he was the one collecting the fare. Who cared what they were doing there? Jin Biao hadn't been back in China for a few years, his eyes were filled with excitement as he looked at the streets of Songshan. He was even more excited now that he was almost home. Lin Yi paid the fare and got off the car with Jin Biao, walking towards Area F. Guangbo hadn't been to the company for the past 2 days, he'd said that he had a bad cold and was resting at home. This made Gubang, who'd been ready to make things difficult for Pingzhan, very troubled. Why did Xia Guangbo fall sick at this critical moment when the board meeting was about to be held? Gubang went to Guangbo's villa to visit him once, but Guangbo looked really haggard. Gubang didn't suspect that Guangbo was faking it. In actuality, Guangbo didn't have a cold, the reason he looked haggard was because he was worried about his son's safety. He'd seen Lin Yi's skills, but as the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands, especially in a foreign country where he wasn't familiar with. It was a difficult thing to bring his son back, no matter how you looked at it. Chapter 333. Chapter 333, Don't Mess with Him, Ding Dong. The doorbell rang, and Guangbo frowned tiredly. Could it be that Jin Gubang couldn't wait any longer and was here again? He'd just been here yesterday. Guangbo didn't want to see Gubang, but he still ordered the housekeeper to open the door for him. She blinked as the door opened, staring at the person in disbelief. Why, you're the young master. Wang Ma stared at the skinny Jin Biao, too shocked to speak. Wasn't this a little too frightening? Wang Ma. It's me. Jin Biao was quite emotional as well. Wang Ma had been very young when he'd left, but her hair had turned white in the blink of an eye. Guangbo had been pretending to be sick on the sofa, thinking that it was Jin Gubang. He jumped up when he heard his son's voice. Son, you're back. Dad. Jin Biao was quite emotional as well. He'd been living a carefree life abroad, but it was only now that he was home that he truly felt the best. All right, you two can catch up later. Where's my shares? Lin Yi would be lying if he said he wasn't touched by the father-son relationship, but Lin Yi didn't feel any pity for them. Jin Biao had been a complete black sheep of the family, it was the father's fault for not teaching his son properly. Guangbo had been so busy making money that he hadn't had the time to discipline his son. He'd thought that he'd be able to save up a fortune for his son, but in the end, it was all for naught. Guangbo was quite happy that his son was back, but hesitated when he remembered that he'd given all his shares to Lin Yi. He'd be left with nothing after that. It didn't matter if he didn't have any money, but would his son be able to live a poor life? He'd given all his money and shares to Lin Yi because he'd been worried about his son's safety, but now that his son was back, he couldn't help but worry. Many people were like that. Once they had something, they'd want to have it again, they'd always be greedy and unwilling. He really didn't want to give his shares to Lin Yi right now. Mr. Lin, what do you think about this? I'll transfer half of my shares to you unconditionally, and leave the other half to Jin Biao. I promise he won't support Jin Gubang. Guangbo said after some hesitation. Lin Yi frowned. This guy had learned to go back on his word. It was good enough that he didn't ask for all of his assets, but he still wanted to play this game with him. Just as Lin Yi was about to curse, Xia Jinbiao spoke first. Dad, don't talk nonsense. You should give this big brother what you deserve. Don't mess with him, I don't want to die. Jin Biao almost fell to the ground when he heard his father's words. Lin Yi's display of power in the Blue Water HQ was still fresh in his mind. Jin Biao was afraid that Lin Yi would kill him if he wasn't happy. Jin Biao. You. Guangbo was stunned. He had risked his life to keep some shares, but wasn't it for his son? But why didn't her son want it? Dad, just give it to this big brother, it's good enough that I came back alive. Jin Biao had been through life and death, and he'd truly experienced the terror of death. He didn't want to be targeted by someone even scarier than Lin Yi anymore. Alright, I don't need those shares if you don't want them. Guangbo nodded and raised his head to look at Lin Yi. I'm sorry, I was being greedy. I was thinking that you could take my life anytime you wanted, Mr. Lin, but I didn't think that. Never mind, I'll get the documents for you right away. I'll transfer all the shares under my name to you. Guangbo went upstairs and took out the documents he'd prepared beforehand, signing the transfer agreement with Lin Yi. I don't need the villa, you guys can stay here. Lin Yi looked at Jin Biao. Alright, I'm leaving. You guys continue reminiscing. Lin Yi found a public phone after leaving Guangbo's villa and called Pingzhan. Hello. How are you? Guangbo was feeling uneasy, and so was Pingzhan. He hadn't heard from Lin Yi for the past 2 days, and he couldn't even focus on his documents. His phone rang, and he picked it up. It was an unfamiliar number. He didn't want to pick it up at first, but he did after some hesitation. Uncle Chu. I'm Lin Yi. Lin Yi's voice sounded from the other side of the phone. Pingzhan was overjoyed. He'd been thinking about Lin Yi all this time, and the fact that Lin Yi was calling put him at ease. Pingzhan didn't really care if they could save Xie Jinbiao or not, as long as Lin Yi was safe. But the number was from Songshan, and Pingzhan found it odd. Was it a long-distance connection? Lin Yi, where are you? Are you alright? Pingzhan asked. I'm fine, I just came back, and I'm on my way to your company now. Are you there? Lin Yi asked. I'm here, where are you? I'll get Li Fu to pick you up. Pingzhan said, relieved that Lin Yi was already back in Songshan. It's fine, I'll take a taxi. Lin Yi said. Alright, I'll wait for you in my office. Pingzhan didn't insist after listening to Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi was already back in Songshan, and there was no danger. Lin Yi flagged down a taxi and headed straight to Pingzhan Industries. There wasn't any traffic during the day, and it took less than 10 minutes for Lin Yi to arrive at the gates of Pingzhan Industries. Lin Yi had come to Pingzhan Industries a couple of times already, and the security guard at the gates had quite an impression of Lin Yi after what happened last time. He welcomed Lin Yi with a smile. Lin Yi nodded and went straight to Pingzhan's office. He knocked on the door, and Faubert was standing inside. Mr. Lin, you're here. Mr. Chu is waiting for you inside. Faubert was a little surprised to see Lin Yi. Pingzhan had told him that Lin Yi was back, but Faubert still couldn't believe it. It hadn't even been 2 days, and Lin Yi had already brought Xie Jinbiao back. But where was Xie Jinbiao? Had he failed the mission? But Faubert didn't ask too much since Pingzhan was there. Pingzhan would find out everything in detail. Pingzhan stood up to greet Lin Yi personally, showing how much he valued Lin Yi. I was worried before, but it looks like you're fine. That's great. Ah. Uncle Chu, didn't I say it before? It's just a small matter. Lin Yi shrugged with a smile. Chapter 334. New shareholder, I brought him back, but I've already sent him home. Lin Yi said, that kid is as timid as a mouse and as thin as a stick. Return him to his father as soon as possible. Don't let him die on the road, oh. Pingzhan was overjoyed after hearing Lin Yi's words. You've sent him home already. That's great, I didn't expect it. Lil Yi, you're my lucky star. Ever since you came, all the troubles on my side have been easily resolved. Ah. Uncle Chu, don't let your guard down. Jean Gubang's just a clown at the front desk, the people behind him are the key. Lin Yi reminded. Zihua's just a spokesperson, I know, but they have been plotting against my Pingzhan Industries for a long time. If there wasn't a mole working with them, they wouldn't have succeeded. I almost got tricked by that old geezer Jean Gubang this time, I'll teach him a lesson. Pingzhan nodded, smiling coldly. Naturally, he knew that a tall tree would attract the wind, but if all the shareholders were to stick together, there wouldn't be a chance for outsiders to take advantage of them. Since Uncle Chu knows, I won't say any more. Lin Yi wasn't interested in the company at all. You're too kind, Uncle Chu. I think we shouldn't let Gubang stay in the company after this is over. Make him give up his shares and get the hell out of here. This time, I won't let a tiger grow in my bosom again. Pingzhan sighed. I used to close one eye because of my parents, but now the company has reached a point where it has to be reorganized. Don't worry, Yi. Uncle Chu won't cause you any more trouble. Pingzhan sighed. It's not really trouble. My old man told me to come here to listen to my employer's orders. Lin Yi said with a smile, embarrassed. He'd put a lot of effort into this mission, and he was looking forward to retiring in one go. By the way, what did Guangbo say? He won't be supporting Jean Gubang anymore, will he? Pingzhan asked the question he was most concerned about after the small talk. Of course not. You've given me all the shares. Lin Yi said as he handed Guangbo's shares over to Pingzhan. This is the contract I signed with him, we just need to sign a new one and it'll be under your name. Pingzhan was taken aback. He didn't think that Lin Yi would be able to get his hands on Guangbo's shares. He had heard Lin Yi mention this before, but he didn't take it seriously. Although Xia Guangbo had no desires, the only thing he couldn't let go of was his son. How could he give away all the shares in his hands? As far as Pingzhan was concerned, Guangbo would rather die than leave something for his son. He really gave you the shares? Pingzhan was pleasantly surprised. His original plan was for Guangbo to team up with him against Jean Gubang, but Lin Yi had surprised him even more. He wasn't worried that Guangbo would betray him this time because he had nothing to do with the company anymore, but the shares will be under your name. You deserve them. You got them with your own abilities, how can I take them back? Lin Yi didn't say anything. Pingzhan waved his hand, rejecting Lin Yi's shares. Me? Lin Yi paused. He didn't expect Pingzhan to give him the shares. That's part of your reward, I guess. Ha! Pingzhan smiled. Alright, there's no need to say so much. You should keep this for yourself. But now, I need you to help me with something. What is it? Lin Yi asked. Just tell me what you need, Uncle Chu. Lin Yi didn't think about keeping the shares for himself, after all, Lin Yi knew who was good to him and who wasn't. If it were Lu Tiany's family, Lin Yi might have asked for a commission as well. Pingzhan, however, didn't need to do that. Ah, a shareholder meeting. Pingzhan smiled. Li Fu, go inform the board that we're having a shareholder meeting right away. I want to introduce the company's third largest shareholder to them. Yes, Mr. Chu. Faubert nodded and left. Even the usually calm Faubert couldn't help but want to laugh. He wanted to see what kind of expression Gubang would have when he learned that Guangbo had given all his shares to Lin Yi. Gubang was puzzled. Pingzhan was calling for a shareholder meeting. Was there something wrong with him? For the past few days, Pingzhan had been looking for excuses to reject the meeting, so why was he calling for one today? Could it be that he'd gotten through Guangbo's plan, or was he preparing a new move? Guangbo shouldn't be at work today, right? Why was there a shareholder meeting if the company's third largest shareholder wasn't here? Despite his confusion, Gubong still arrived at the meeting punctually. He had to at least put on a show. There were more people in the shareholder meeting than the board of directors, and some of the smaller shareholders would attend as well. Gubong nodded to the shareholders he was familiar with before taking the seat to Pingzhan's left. This was the seat he'd been sitting in all this time, the symbol of being the company's second largest shareholder. The seat to Pingzhan's right was Guangbo's. Gubong frowned when he realized that there was no one at Guangbo's seat. Could it be that Pingzhan was trying to bypass Guangbo and call the meeting? But if the third largest shareholder wasn't here, he wouldn't be able to hold the meeting. Time passed by, and soon, 10 minutes had passed since Faubert's notice. Gubong's face was dark as he sat in his seat, not moving an inch. He couldn't figure out what Pingzhan was up to. Was he just calling all the shareholders here to cause a scene? Gubong was deep in thought when the meeting room went silent all of a sudden. He raised his head to see Li Fu walking in. This was the prelude to Pingzhan's arrival, and Faubert would always be there first, setting up the documents and setting up the teacups for Pingzhan. It wasn't long before Pingzhan walked in, with a young man by his side. The other shareholders didn't pay much attention to him, assuming that he was Pingzhan's new secretary, but Gubong's eyes narrowed. Lin Yi. How could Gubong not know this person? The man who'd ruined his plans time and time again. Gubong wanted to tear him to pieces. But what surprised Gubong? What was he doing here? Chapter 335. Chapter 335, Shocking news. Pingzhan spoke up just as Gubong was wondering what was going on. All right, everyone quiet, we're calling for a shareholders meeting. Chairman Chu, isn't that against the rules? The third largest shareholder of the company, Mr. Xie Guangbo, isn't here right now. Gubong objected to Pingzhan's suggestion. Even if there's something wrong with his body, he should have sent a representative. I suspect that you're purposely avoiding Mr. Xie to call for this meeting. Gubong's words were a little impatient, but since he'd decided to go all out with Pingzhan, there was no need for him to hold back anymore. Impatience was better than Pingzhan coming up with some dirty tricks. Calm down, Vice Chairman Jean, the reason I'm calling for this meeting is to talk about Mr. Xie Guangbo. Pingzhan didn't seem to mind at all as he looked at Gubong and nodded calmly. Gubong felt as if he'd punched into cotton. He thought that Pingzhan would try his best to avoid his question, and that he'd be able to find a way to use the fact that Guangbo wasn't at the meeting to stop Pingzhan from calling for the meeting. Yet, Pingzhan had answered his question so casually, and he'd made it very clear that the purpose of the meeting was Guangbo's matter. All right, I'd like to hear the details. Gubong could only keep his anger bottled up in his belly, unable to vent it out. He shut his mouth after that, but he'd like to see what Pingzhan could come up with. Could Pingzhan be saying that Guangbo had given Pingzhan full authority to represent him? That didn't seem possible, and Pingzhan wouldn't come up with something so childish. Mr. Lin Yi, please take a seat. Pingzhan wouldn't call Lin Yi in a formal setting, especially during a shareholders meeting. He'd have to call Lin Yi by his full name, since Lin Yi was a shareholder of the company now. In private, it was fine to call him whatever he wanted, but in front of others, he couldn't let Lin Yi appear here as a junior. Pingzhan gestured for Lin Yi to sit down, pointing at Guangbo's usual spot. Lin Yi nodded and was about to sit down when Gubong stopped him. Wait. Kid, don't sit down yet. Gubong objected immediately when he saw that Lin Yi was going to take Guangbo's seat. Chairman Chu, what do you mean by this? Are you saying that this kid can represent Director Xie? But I remember that he is your daughter's bodyguard, right? Gubong's words made the other board members look at Lin Yi, unsure if Gubang was telling the truth. Bodyguard. Pingzhan chuckled. Lin Yi is indeed a good friend of my daughter Mangyao, but it's not wrong to say that he's her bodyguard. Flower protector. Pingzhan's explanation made the board members understand what he meant. Pingzhan was saying that Lin Yi was his daughter's boyfriend. It wouldn't be wrong to say that he was a bodyguard. A flower protector was a bodyguard. Flower protector. Gubang humphed coldly. Bodyguard or flower protector, I don't care what he does. I'd like to ask Chairman Chu, why is he here at the shareholders' meeting? And why is he sitting in Director Xie's seat? Are you trying to tell me that this is Director Xie's idea? Or is someone trying to use his position for personal gain? Are you retarded? I think you've eaten too many retarded pills, just like that idiot Guangbua. Lin Yi didn't wait for Pingzhan to speak. You're asking me why I'm sitting here. I'd like to ask you why you're sitting here. Who the hell are you? Director Xie's idea. Does that idiot Guangbua have the right to send me here? Who the hell is he? He's just a little bit stronger than you. I'm a shareholder of the company, one of the 3 biggest shareholders. Why can't I sit here? Gubang was pissed off by Lin Yi's words. Since when was he ever called an idiot? Lin Yi, on the other hand, was insulting him in front of so many people. Gubang was starting to get pissed off. Chairman Chu, I'd like to ask, someone like this is allowed to attend the shareholders' meeting. What right does he have to do that? And he dares to insult the shareholders. Security. Where are the security guards? Kick him out. The other shareholders were looking at Lin Yi, confused. Even if he was Pingzhan's son-in-law, he couldn't be this arrogant, could he? Gubang was the second biggest shareholder, second only to Pingzhan. Only Pingzhan and Guangbua had the guts to go against him like this. The other smaller shareholders didn't even have the right to do so. But you're only Pingzhan's son-in-law, not Pingzhan. Isn't it a bit too much to insult a shareholder like this? If you dare insult the second biggest shareholder of the company, then wouldn't we, the smaller shareholders, be at your mercy? Pingzhan spoke up just as everyone was looking at Lin Yi with disdain. Vice Chairman Jean, Mr. Lin Yi is now the new shareholder of the company, the biggest shareholder other than you and me. Pingzhan's words caused an uproar in the room. Everyone looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Wasn't the third biggest shareholder Xia Guangbua? How did it become Lin Yi? Gubang paused as he looked at Pingzhan in disbelief before turning to Lin Yi. How is this possible? This is impossible. Pingzhan, what are you trying to do? Gubang was going crazy at this point. He didn't believe Pingzhan's words at all. It was simply too ridiculous. The third biggest shareholder of the company was Xia Guangbua. How could it be Lin Yi? I don't have time for your bullshit. Here's the transfer document, take a look. Lin Yi tossed out a document casually. It was the transfer agreement signed by Guangbua. Gubang grabbed the document and started reading it, glaring at Pingzhan savagely after he was done. Impossible. I don't believe it, you guys made this up. Why would Xia Guangbua give his shares to you? And for free at that? Is he retarded? Gubang used the word retarded in a fit of rage. You'll know if I'm retarded or not with a phone call. Lin Yi curled his lips as he looked at Gubang as if he was an idiot. Chapter 336. Hope shattered in an instant. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Gubang was still talking to himself as he took out his phone. In actuality, as an old acquaintance of Guangbua's, he knew very well how Guangbua's signature looked and how he stamped it. From the surface, it didn't look like a forgery. Moreover, Pingzhan wouldn't do something like this. It was pointless. Even if he managed to gain the upper hand in a shareholder meeting, the moment Guangbua appeared, the scheme would fall apart on its own. Pingzhan, on the other hand, would be labeled as dishonest and deceiving the shareholders. It wasn't worth it at all. As far as Gubang was concerned, however, Guangbo giving his shares to Lin Yi for free was even more impossible. Was Guangbo an idiot? His son was still in the hands of a foreign mafia, and his son owed a huge amount of money to the loan sharks. He'd be dead if he didn't pay it back. Guangbo's only option was to keep his shares in order to cooperate with Gubang, and that was his only way out. Giving his shares to Lin Yi at a time like this wouldn't help him in any way. He dialed Guangbo's phone, only to find it turned off. Gubang didn't mind, however, since Guangbo's phone had been turned off for the past 2 days. Gubang dialed the landline in Guangbo's villa once more. Someone picked up after a while, but it wasn't Guangbo, it was an unfamiliar man's voice. "Hello, who are you looking for?" "I'm looking for Mr. Guangbo. May I know if he's here?" Gubang asked. "Oh, you're looking for my dad. Hold on, I'll go get him." It was Jin Biao who picked up the phone. Guangbo was very happy today, his son was home, and he was preparing to cook his son's favorite dishes. In actuality, while Guangbo had given all his shares to Lin Yi, he still had some real estate left. There were more than 10 houses in Songshan, along with some antiques and jewelry. He'd be able to sell them all for tens of millions of yuan, and it was more than enough to start a small business. Giving his shares to Lin Yi made him feel more relaxed. His days of starting a business with his son were the happiest days of his life. Wait, Guangbo is your dad. You. Who are you?" Gubang's face was filled with shock. "I am his son, Xie Jinbiao." "What's wrong? Who are you?" Xie Jinbiao thought to himself, is this person an idiot? If I call him dad, who do you think I am? You. Weren't you captured by a foreign gang? Why are you home? Gubang asked in disbelief. Who are you? How did you know I was captured? Jin Biao frowned. Did you call to make trouble? No. I'm your dad's colleague. Gubang said, feeling that something was amiss. Why were there so many weird things happening today? Xia Guangbo's son had returned safely, but Xia Guangbo's shares had fallen into the hands of Lin Yi. My dad is here, you talk to him. Hearing that he was his father's colleague, Xia Jinbiao resisted the urge to scold him. Why was this guy so rude? Now that he was captured, he couldn't come back. After a while, Xia Guangbo's voice came through the phone. Hello. I'm Xia Guangbo. Old Xia, I'm old Jean. Gubang forced a smile. Was that your son? He's back. He's back. What's up? Guangbo's warm voice was no longer there, replaced by a cold, perfunctory tone. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. I'm cooking for my son. Wait, Pingzhan's having a shareholder meeting. Do you know about this? Gubang wasn't about to let Guangbo hang up. He quickly asked. What does this have to do with me? I've already given my shares to someone else. Guangbo said impatiently. All right, I'm hanging up if there's nothing else. Bye. Beep beep beep. Gubang's phone rang a couple of times before the screen said, call ended. Gubang was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. He breathed heavily, not knowing what to do. He thought that he was going to become the chairman a few minutes ago, but this phone call was like a bolt from the blue that struck him like a bolt of lightning. It was over, it was all over. Gubang knew that he had no chance of becoming the chairman now. What a joke, the first and third shareholders of the company were family now. What the hell was he supposed to do? I'm afraid that those small shareholders who previously sided with me will no longer side with me if they see this situation now. It was obvious that Peng Zhan and Lin Yi's side would be the strongest in the shareholder meetings in the future. There was no way he could win against them. His hope was shattered in an instant. Gubong didn't want to know how Lin Yi had gotten Guangbu's shares anymore. It was pointless. The only thing he could do now was think of a way to protect himself. Gubong was certain that Peng Zhan wouldn't go easy on him next. So whether or not he could become the chairman was secondary. Whether or not he could stay in the company was another matter altogether. Gubong. Gubong smashed the phone in his hand onto the ground, shattering it into pieces. Gubong smashed his phone on the floor and stood up, walking out of the meeting room without a backward glance. His face was dark and gloomy. Peng Zhan didn't mind it at all. It was normal for Gubong to react like this. Peng Zhan didn't mind at all. In fact, it was quite satisfying. Peng Zhan had wanted to smash his phone when Gubong and Guangbu were singing the same tune. The purpose of this meeting is to introduce our new shareholder, Mr. Lin Yi. Peng Zhan smiled as he introduced Lin Yi to the other shareholders. The meeting room was filled with a round of applause. They weren't idiots. This person was the third largest shareholder of the company, and he had an intimate relationship with Peng Zhan's daughter. They wouldn't dare offend someone like that. Besides, no one doubted that Lin Yi was using Gubong's name to intimidate others. After all, Lin Yi had the right to be arrogant. He was the third largest shareholder of the company. Please take care of me. Lin Yi stood up and nodded to everyone. Next, I would like to propose that Lin Yi be a member of the company's board of directors. Please vote. Peng Zhan suggested. With Gubong gone, who would want to offend Peng Zhan for him? And so, without a doubt, Lin Yi became the new director of the company. Gubong's vote didn't matter anymore. Chapter 337. Chapter 337. Two paths. Lin Yi didn't need to get involved in how Peng Zhan dealt with Gubong. If Peng Zhan still couldn't take care of Gubong under these circumstances, then Lin Yi would really have to wonder if he had the ability to manage a company at all. Gubong went back to his office. He'd never felt so defeated before, and he'd finally gotten a taste of it today. Gubong had always wanted to replace Peng Zhan, and with Guangbu's support, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. But the situation at the shareholders' meeting today had told him that it was all but a passing cloud. He had nothing left. He'd thought that with Guangbu's support, his position as chairman was already in the bag. He'd completely fallen out with Peng Zhan, to the point where there was no turning back. Gubong didn't believe that Peng Zhan would let him go, and he'd use this opportunity to crush him. After some hesitation, Gubong dialed up Zihua's phone. There was no point talking to Yuchu about this anymore, so he had to discuss it with Zihua. Hello? Vice Chairman Jean. How's it going? I heard from Lil Yuchu that you're about to take control of the company. Zihua said. Master Bing's coming to Songshan in a couple of days. You'll be rewarded handsomely with this gift of yours. I'm sorry, Zihua bro. Gubong said carefully. There's been some changes. Zihua paused, his voice darkening. What changes? I don't know what's going on with that director I'm working with, but he suddenly transferred his shares to Lin Yi. Gubong said. Lin Yi and that old fox Peng Zhan are working together, and I can't control the board of directors anymore. They're going to make a move on me soon. So you're saying that the real estate company we're gifting to Master Bing is going to fall through? Zihua's voice grew colder. I'm afraid so. Gubong smiled helplessly. Damn it, are you playing with me? I've done so many things for you, and I've lost 2 golden class masters because of it. Are you telling me to just let it go? Zihua humphed coldly. Jean Gubong, do you have a death wish? Zihua bro. I'm sorry, please don't be angry. Gubong said, startled. Gubong wouldn't have cared if someone else had said that to him, but Zihua could kill him with a snap of his fingers. Sihua, on the other hand, could kill him with ease. It wasn't a joke, Sihua had the ability to do so, and no one would stand up for him after he died. You're not angry. Why don't you think about how angry Master Bing will be? Sihua cursed. Master Bing's angry, I'm done for. I'm telling you, Jean Gubang, you have to give me the real estate company whether you want to or not. Otherwise, bear the consequences yourself. Sihua bro. Unfortunately, Sihua hung up with a bang before Gubang could finish. Gubang pushed the phone off his desk, sending it crashing to the floor. Gubang was pissed as well, but he didn't dare vent it on Sihua. What kind of person was Sihua? He was someone who had his way with both the black and white sides of Songshan, and his boss was even more powerful. Gubang couldn't afford to piss off someone like that. Pingzhan, you're forcing me into a dead end. If you push me too far, I'll take you down with me. I'll blow you up with a bomb. Gubang said hatefully. But he was just saying that. Gubang was actually very afraid of death. His embezzlement in the company would only result in jail if Pingzhan found out, but his life would be forfeit if Sihua were to get angry. Gubang had to think of a plan as soon as possible, or his life would truly be a tragedy. Of course, that was just the beginning. Pingzhan called him in for a talk before he could come up with a plan. Gubang knew that Pingzhan was looking for him for no good reason, and as much as he didn't want to go, he didn't have a choice. He couldn't help but sigh as he made his way to Pingzhan's office. Faubert was standing at the door with a smile on his face. Mr. Chu is waiting for you inside, Vice Chairman Jean. Got it. Gubang waved his hand weakly as he walked into Pingzhan's office. He'd wanted to use Sihua's help to turn things around, but now it seemed that Sihua wasn't killing him at all. Help. Dream on. Vice Chairman Jean, please have a seat. Pingzhan pointed at the sofa beside the desk. Gubang looked as if he'd aged 10 years all of a sudden. He looked at Pingzhan with a tired expression before plopping down on the sofa. Pingzhan, just say what you want, don't beat around the bush. Gubang couldn't be bothered to play mind games with Pingzhan, there was no need for it anymore. He still had to deal with Sihua after dealing with Pingzhan. Besides, he wasn't Pingzhan's opponent at all. What was the point of this stalemate? He might as well just say what he wanted and see what Pingzhan wanted. Alright, I'll be direct if that's the case, Vice Chairman Jean. Pingzhan nodded. I'll give you two options. First, I'll investigate how much money you've made from the company and send you to court. Ah. Tell me the second option, Pingzhan. Gubang wasn't an idiot, he knew that this wasn't a choice he'd made after hearing Pingzhan's words, since it wouldn't benefit anyone. Second option, give me your shares, and I'll let bygones be bygones. Pingzhan said faintly. Pingzhan, don't go overboard. My shares are worth a couple $100 million, no matter what. You're going back just like that. Gubang stood up all of a sudden, glaring at Pingzhan. The money you've made from the company all these years should be around that number, right? Even if it's not a couple $100 million, it's at least $100 or $200 million. Pingzhan smiled. How many years would $200 million put you in prison? Compared to the shares, you choose. Give me another $100 million. Gubang said after some hesitation. Pingzhan, on the other hand, was just asking for a ridiculous price. He humphed when he heard Gubang. 50 million. 80 million. Gubang said. Chapter 338. It worked. The first option Pingzhan had given Gubang was just to scare him off. There was no real benefit to Pingzhan if he really did find the evidence and put Gubang in jail for the rest of his life. Plus, even if the evidence was found, there was no guarantee that it would be of any use. How long would a lawsuit take? It was better to go with the second option. As long as Gubang wasn't an idiot, he'd definitely choose the second option. As expected, Gubong didn't disappoint Pingzhan. Alright, 80 million it is then. It's a deal. Gubong wasn't in the mood to haggle with Pingzhan, he had more important things to attend to. With this 80 million, he'd be able to start a small real estate company as compensation for Master Bing. Sihua wouldn't bother him anymore then, would he? Gubong felt like he'd lost two birds with one stone. Not only did he lose his position as chairman, but he'd also be forced to leave the company. He'd lost his shares in exchange for 80 million, and that 80 million might not even be his own, he'd have to give it to Master Bing. Gubong wouldn't mind fighting Pingzhan head-on if Sihua were still supporting Gubong. He wasn't afraid of Pingzhan at all with Sihua's support, but Gubong didn't have the time to fight with Pingzhan now that Sihua was ready to kill him. Gubong didn't have the energy to fight with Pingzhan right now. He'd better take the money and leave. That afternoon, Gubong completed his resignation procedures and handed over his shares to Pingzhan. He left Pingzhan Industries under the shocked and mocking gazes of the other shareholders with the 80 million in his retirement fund. Vice Chairman Jean had become a part of Pingzhan Industries' history, he'd no longer be a part of the board of directors from now on. The shareholders and directors who'd wanted to stand on Gubong's side were all shocked. It was lucky that they hadn't gotten involved with Gubong, otherwise they'd be done for. They'd seen how powerful Gubong was back then, working with the third largest shareholder, Xia Guangbua, in preparation for the Operation Chu, but what had happened? Guangbua's shares had gone to Pingzhan's son-in-law for no reason at all, and Gubong's shares had been taken back by Pingzhan. Right now, Pingzhan Industries was under Chu Pingzhan's control. Most of the company's shares were in his hands. Meng Yao and Yushu were enjoying themselves when Lin Yi wasn't home. Oh, I can finally walk around the house naked. Yushu said as she curled up on the sofa, watching TV. Yushu often took off all her clothes the moment she got home, saying that wearing clothes would affect her body's growth. Ahem, Shu, you need to be mindful of your image. Even if Lin Yi's not home, what if Faubert comes? Meng Yao said helplessly. Every time Faubert comes, he knocks on the door. He won't come in casually. Yushu, on the other hand, didn't seem to mind at all. She was still showing off her body to Meng Yao on the sofa. Yao Yao, what do you think of my body recently? Stop showing off your boobs in front of me, I'll cut them off if you keep showing them off. Meng Yao glared at Yushu. Did she think she could show off her body just because she had a good figure? Why don't you say you're not as tall as me? You've got all the nutrients in your boobs, and I've got all the nutrients in my bones. Oh, I'm not showing off. Yushu sat back on the sofa, depressed. Why didn't anyone praise her body? Seriously, she couldn't just show it to anyone, not even Meng Yao, who was the only one she could look at. Yushu felt helpless. Go show off to your shield, bro, I'm not interested in you. Go away, I want to watch TV. Meng Yao said as she looked at Yushu disdainfully. You're showing off here and there, aren't you just going to let other men touch you? Oh, I want to, but I'm afraid you won't agree, Yao Yao. Yushu said as she looked at Meng Yao. Why wouldn't I agree? Meng Yao didn't want to talk to Yushu anymore. You're the main wife, so the main wife gets priority. You should be the one showing off first, I'll have to wait behind you. Yushu said with a grin. Meng Yao glared at Yushu. Can't you calm down a little? I've noticed that you're the most obedient when Lin Yi's at home. I've finally realized the benefits of having Lin Yi at home. Aw. Yao Yao, you miss Shield Bro too. Yushu blinked as if she'd discovered a new continent. She waved her hands around on the sofa as she asked. What do I miss? Meng Yao said, a little annoyed. I just want him to come back soon, so you can have some peace. I can't take it anymore, I've been holding it in for 10 years. Meng Yao realized that she was at the end of her patience, especially since Lin Yi had been staying at her house for a while. Meng Yao had gotten used to Yushu's behavior, and now that Lin Yi was gone, Yushu was back to normal. Meng Yao prayed that Lin Yi would come back soon. Caw. The door to the villa was opened from the outside. Wah. Meng Yao's eyes went wide as she looked at the door in shock. No way. Her prayers had come true this quickly. Lin Yi was back. Her dreams had come true. Yushu was stunned as well. She'd been dancing around and making fun of Meng Yao just a moment ago, and now Lin Yi was barging in. Most importantly, the sofa Yushu was sitting on was facing the villa's doorway, and Lin Yi could see every part of her body clearly. Ugh. Did I come back at the wrong time? Lin Yi gulped as he realized that moving his eyes away from Yushu's body was a very difficult decision, so difficult that he couldn't complete it. In actuality, Lin Yi had been drooling over Yushu for a long time, but because she was Meng Yao's best friend, Lin Yi hadn't dared to show it too much. But today, this was a golden opportunity, and it'd be a waste not to see it. Besides, Master Lin comforted himself that this was an accident, and that Yushu was the one who'd asked him to see it. Cover your eyes, you can't look. Meng Yao finally snapped back to reality and screamed, stopping Lin Yi's perverted behavior. Oh. Yushu raised her hands, and just when everyone thought that she was going to cover her chest, Yushu covered her eyes with her hands. Chapter 339. Chapter 339, Nobody Loses. Shoo, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about Lin Yi. Meng Yao snapped before turning to Lin Yi. What are you looking at? I'll gouge your eyeballs out and stomp on them. Oh. Yushu pulled her hand away from her eyes before grabbing the blanket on the sofa and covering herself up. Her face was as red as a cooked lobster. The sunlight was too bright, and the room was too dark. I lost my sight temporarily. I didn't see anything. Lin Yi said innocently with his hands up. Lin Yi, the street lights are on already. Meng Yao wasn't that gullible. Ugh. Actually, I got nervous and got it backwards. The light in the room was too bright, and it was too dark outside. I lost my sight temporarily. I didn't see anything. Lin Yi said awkwardly. I'll go back to my room first. I need to take a shower. Stop right there. You saw Shu's naked, how are you going to compensate me? Meng Yao didn't want to let Lin Yi go just like that. She felt very wronged and uncomfortable. Yushu was the one who'd been seen naked, so why did she feel so bad? Ugh. Let's talk after I take a shower. Lin Yi didn't want to piss Meng Yao off right now. He'd wait for her to calm down and forget about it. Shield bro. Why were you in such a hurry to shower? Are you planning to hit a plane? Yushu said weakly. All of a sudden, the tense atmosphere dissipated with that one sentence from Yushu. Meng Yao was pissed off. I'm standing up for you. What kind of question was that? Shu, what the hell are you talking about? I just wanted to confirm if the books were true. Yushu stuck her tongue out, blaming herself for speaking too quickly. Didn't the books say that boys would have that kind of reaction after seeing something exciting? Shield bro must have some bad thoughts since he was in such a hurry to take a shower. Shu, are you out of your mind? Meng Yao was going crazy. No one's going to think you're a mute if you don't talk. Ugh. I'll go back first then. Lin Yi was feeling rather awkward from Yushu's actions as well. He'd wanted to take a shower because he'd been out and about for 2 days, and Yushu had thought that he was going to do something dirty, and the target of his fantasies was her. Lin Yi, how dare you? You're not allowed to use Shu as a target for your dirty thoughts. Meng Yao glared at Lin Yi. No, I'm really sweating. I just want to take a bath. If you don't believe me, you can watch. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh at the end. Pervert. Meng Yao humphed. Who wants to watch you? Lin Yi ran back to his room and let out a long breath. That was way too exciting. Why didn't time stop? He didn't know how long he'd have to wait for the next time. Of course, Lin Yi could just sneak up to the second floor at midnight and watch without anyone noticing. General Weiwu was just a decoration. But that was way too perverted, and Lin Yi didn't want to do it. If he wanted to see, he'd do it openly. Even if Yushu didn't let him see, a few accidents like this was enough to satisfy Lin Yi. Shu, look at you, you're a girl, how are you going to get married if you let him see everything? Meng Yao said helplessly after Lin Yi left. Shield bro's not an outsider, he even kissed me. Yushu blushed at the memory. Kissed you? Meng Yao paused, realizing something she didn't know. When did he kiss you? She only knew that Lin Yi had pinched Yushu's boobs, but she didn't know that Lin Yi had kissed Yushu. What other secrets were these two hiding from her? Yushu realized that she'd let the cat out of the bag, but it was too late for regrets. It's not that. Actually, when I fell into the water, Shield Bro was afraid that I'd choke, so he kissed me on the mouth. You. Why didn't you say that earlier? Meng Yao was pissed. Shu, you're a girl, what are you going to do if he kisses you and looks at you like that? No, we have to get him to take responsibility. It's not that serious, is it? Yushu jumped at Meng Yao's words. Lin Yi had taken advantage of her so many times without her noticing. How is it not? No, I have to talk to my dad, we can't let him stay here anymore, it's too dangerous. Meng Yao didn't mean what she said. Her heart was in a mess. Alright, Yao Yao, it's not like we got the short end of the stick. Didn't we see Shield Bro going to the washroom at school? Yushu said with a straight face. So we're even, he got the short end of the stick too, he's at a disadvantage too. Meng Yao was speechless. She couldn't understand her best friend's thoughts with common sense. But Meng Yao was a little puzzled. Yushu wasn't someone who would let herself get taken advantage of easily. If she told her brother Yutian about this, he'd come over and beat up Lin Yi. But, could Yutian beat Lin Yi? In Meng Yao's impression, Yutian was very strong, and other than Ling Shan, everyone else was subdued by him. But according to Shu, Ling Shan was completely dominated by Lin Yi, using her phone to take pictures of Yushu playing with sand and sending them back to Lin Yi. Was this something that Ling Shan would do in the past? Why don't we peek at him while he's showering? Yushu made a tempting suggestion. Meng Yao would be lying if she said she wasn't curious, but if she peeked at Lin Yi showering, wouldn't she become a pervert? And so, Meng Yao wouldn't agree to Yushu's suggestion. Shu, you're getting more and more open-minded, this isn't a good sign. This is the sign of a girl losing her virginity. Ah. Is it that serious? Yushu was shocked as well, and her face started to blush. It was true that she wasn't repulsed by him at all. Other than the fact that her heart was beating really fast, she wasn't complaining at all after being hugged and kissed by him. Yushu didn't know if that counted as having a good impression of him, but Meng Yao's words sounded quite serious. Yes, it's serious. So, if you don't like Lin Yi and don't want to marry him, you better stay away from him. Meng Yao warned solemnly. Chapter 340. Chapter 340, Tang Yin's cousin I. What does that have to do with me? Meng Yao humphed, not caring at all. Don't tell me you'll marry whoever I marry. Shu, you're getting more and more out of character. Nah, I think it's pretty normal. Yushu said as she rubbed her head. Come upstairs with me and put on some clothes. Don't be so open next time. Meng Yao said, not bothering to talk to Yushu anymore as she dragged her upstairs. After a hot shower, Lin Yi felt refreshed from head to toe. Every pore on his body had opened up. He laid down comfortably on his bed and turned on his phone. After he turned on his phone, he received a lot of text messages. The first one was from Wang Xinyan when she got on the plane, sending her phone number to Lin Yi. Lin Yi saved the number and looked at the messages. Some of them were from Kong Xiaobo, reminding him to come back this weekend for his second grandpa's birthday party. The last one was from Tang Yin. It was a short message. When are you going to school? Lin Yi quickly texted Tang Yin back. I'm done. I'll go to school tomorrow. Tang Yin jumped when she heard the notification. She didn't want to tell her mother about her phone, and she forgot to put her phone on silent. Whose phone is that? Old Tang, is that your phone? That's not my voice. Mrs. Tang was busy preparing dinner when she heard the notification of a text message on her phone. It's not mine, that's not my phone. Isn't that a Nokia's message? Mr. Tang was lying on the sofa in the living room as he looked at his phone. Old Zhang's Nokia next door sounds like this. Whose phone is that? That's weird. Ian, did you hear that? Mrs. Tang asked. It's mine. Tang Yin took her phone out of her pocket. She couldn't lie even if she wanted to, and she wasn't good at lying anyway. Yours? Mrs. Tang looked at the phone in Tang Yun's hand curiously. Ian, when did you get a phone? I didn't buy it. Lin Yi gave it to me. Tang Yin lowered her head, blushing like a child who had done something wrong. Lin Yi bought you a phone. Mrs. Tang didn't scold Tang Yin, but smiled instead. Let me see. It should be 1,000, right? Mom. Tang Yin wasn't happy. Not only did her mother not scold her, but her attitude made her think that she was snobbish. This child, don't be shy. Mrs. Tang glared at her daughter. What's wrong with buying you a phone? Your dad hasn't bought me a mobile phone yet. I even bought the counterfeit phone I'm using with my own money. Tang Juqing lowered his head. Every time this happened, he hated himself for being useless. He was injured and lying on the bed like a cripple. Not only could he not go out to earn money, but he also had to burden Tang Yun and her mother with medical fees. Sometimes, Tang Juqing wanted to die, but when he thought of his wife and daughter, he couldn't do that. Although his wife often scolded him for being useless, she still loved him from the bottom of her heart. Tang Juqing could feel this. It could be seen from the way his wife left early and returned late at night to take care of the family. Mom, Dad's actually really nice to you. Compared to the surreal feeling of being with Lin Yi, Tang Yun felt that her parents being together was the true happiness. I know he treats me well. Otherwise, I would have left him a long time ago. Mrs. Tang had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. She snorted and said, but, Yin, don't be like me. I've fallen in love with your father for the rest of my life, and I've accepted my fate. You can't suffer like this. Tang Yun knew that her mother wanted to talk about her and Lin Yi, but was Lin Yi and her suitable? Tang Yun had a feeling that her life wasn't real. Maybe one day, Lin Yi wouldn't like her anymore. Dang dang dang. Tang Yun and her family were talking when a knocking sound came from the courtyard. Mrs. Tang put the bowl and chopsticks on the table and walked out of the house to the yard. Who is it? Auntie, it's me and Wei. A girl's voice came from outside the door. Is it Dan? Why are you here so late? Mrs. Tang recognized the girl's voice. It was Wei's childhood friend, Dan. She opened the door as she spoke. Dan was anxiously pulling a stubborn boy. She saw Mrs. Tang as if she had seen her savior. Auntie, hurry and talk to Wei, he wants to sell his kidney. What? Mrs. Tang jumped at Dan's words. What's going on? Wei, you want to sell your kidney? Aunt, don't worry about it. Xiao Dan dragged me here and asked you to persuade me, but it's useless. I'll have to sell my kidney anyway. Xiao Wei said resolutely with a resolute expression on his face. Tang Yun heard her cousin's voice from inside the house. She was shocked when she heard that he was going to sell his kidney. She quickly ran out of the house. Wei, what did you say? Why do you want to sell your kidney? What nonsense are you talking about? Sis, it's none of your business. You can't do anything about it. I have to sell my kidney or Dan will be in danger. Wei said. Dan, take Wei inside first. Tell Auntie what's going on. Why are you selling your kidney for no reason? Mrs. Tang saw that her nephew didn't look like he was joking and panicked. Selling a kidney wasn't a joke. How could he sell it just like that? Dan pulled Wei into the house and was on the verge of tears. Tang Yin, sis, hurry and talk to Wei. He won't listen no matter what I say. He wants to sell his kidney. Wei, tell Auntie, why do you want to sell your kidney? Tang Yin didn't know what to do. She thought it was a joke before, but Wei didn't look like he was joking at all. Sis, even if I tell you, it's useless. I need money now, but your family's situation isn't much better than mine. If I don't sell my kidney, how am I going to raise money? Lil Wei shook his head. What can't we solve? We can find a way to borrow money. We don't have to sell our kidney. Mrs. Tang walked over and persuaded Wei, how much money do you need? 150,000. Where can I borrow money from? My period is sick and we haven't collected enough money yet. If I could borrow money, I would have done it already. Wei sighed, Auntie, sis, I know you guys are doing this for my own good, but I have no other choice. Chapter 341. Tang Yun's grievance under Xiao Dan's tearful complaints and Wei's indignant explanation. Tang Yun's family finally understood the whole story. It all started with the two's financial aid. Xiao Wei and Xiao Dan were both from a small county near Songshan. They were neighbors since they were young, and could be considered childhood sweethearts. They liked each other as they grew up, and their parents had tacitly agreed to the fact that they would be together in the future. However, there was an unforeseen event. Both families were poor, and they were poor. They had to live frugally, let alone pay for school. When Wei and Dan were in elementary school, a few big bosses came to the village and offered financial aid to poor children. Everyone was overjoyed when they heard the news, and Wei and Dan successfully went through elementary school, middle school, and vocational school with the help of the same boss. They were about to graduate, and according to the agreement they made with the boss, they would work for free for a period of time after they turned 18 as repayment for their financial aid. Originally, this agreement was only a symbolic form. Many students in the village went to find their respective bosses for financial aid, and it was only for a period of time. It was considered as returning the favor. Little Wei and Little Dan thought that they would be the same, but they didn't expect that after they went to the big boss's company, the big boss took a look at Little Dan and made her a secretary, while Little Wei was assigned to be a security guard. Both of them were paid according to normal employee treatment. It was not easy to find a job these days. Little Wei and Little Dan found a formal job before they graduated, so they were naturally quite happy. While they were grateful to their boss, they also decided to work hard to repay their boss's kindness. But who would have thought that the nightmare would begin? The boss didn't have any good intentions in making Dan his secretary. He started drooling over her beauty and body the moment he laid eyes on her. Dan wasn't very pretty, but she was young, fresh, had good skin, and a good figure. The boss was tempted and prepared to take her for himself. In the beginning, the big boss only expressed his intentions very subtly. After being flatly rejected by Xiao Dan, he began to show his ferocious face and began to touch Xiao Dan more and more unscrupulously. Dan naturally told her boyfriend Wei after being wronged, and in a fit of rage, Wei brought Dan to the boss and told him that they wanted to resign. They couldn't afford to offend him, but they could at least hide from him. They could quit, right? Wei wasn't stupid, he knew that they couldn't afford to piss off the boss. He heard that the boss had connections in both the underworld and the underworld, so he could only tactfully express his dissatisfaction and request to resign. As a result, the big boss turned hostile on the spot and said, "Resign? Impossible." According to the original contract, Wei and Dan had to work for the company for 3 years after they turned 18 before they could leave. Otherwise, it would be a breach of contract and they would have to pay for all the scholarships and interest. Of course, this contract was only symbolic at the beginning. Many students sponsored by other bosses did not go to work. They just regarded it as a kind of charity. But when it came to Dan and Wei, there was nothing they could do if the boss wanted to take it seriously. They were dumbfounded when they saw the contract, not knowing what to do. The boss had already torn off all pretenses, so he didn't hold back at all. He told Dan that if she became his mistress, she wouldn't have to pay back the money and would get a raise in the future. Wei, on the other hand, would continue working as a security guard and wouldn't have to resign. If she didn't agree, then he would return all the financial aid within 3 days. Wei and Dan were dumbfounded. Where were they going to get that much money in 3 days? The financial aid the boss had given them was at least 150,000. How were they going to pay it back? Wei had no choice but to contact the company that sold his kidneys to pay back the debt. He didn't want Dan to be wronged. He couldn't accept his girlfriend becoming someone else's mistress. Tang Yin's family knew about the financial aid, and they thought that Wei and the others were lucky to be helped by a rich boss. But now it seemed like it was a misfortune. "Auntie, please think of something. Wei can't sell his kidney. I heard that his body would be in terrible shape if he sold his kidney, and he wouldn't be able to do anything in the future." Dan was on the verge of tears as she looked at Mrs. Tang pitifully. She tried to persuade him, but Wei didn't listen. "Wei, don't do anything stupid. How about this? I've saved 20,000 kwai over the years. Use it first, and I'll think of something else for you." Mrs. Tang said as she went to look for the bankbook, "Auntie, it's okay. 20,000 isn't enough to do anything. That's money for my uncle's surgery, I can't just use it." Wei quickly stopped her. "Auntie, you know how close I am to Dan. I can't push her into the fire pit." However, what Xiao Wei said was the truth. He could not push Dan into the fire pit, and he needed 150,000 yuan. No one else could help him. If Mrs. Tang had 150,000 yuan, she would have done her husband's surgery a long time ago, instead of dragging it out until now. "Ian, can you give Lin Yi a call? Borrow some money from him." Mrs. Tang hesitated as she looked at her daughter. Wei was the only son in her family, and they were counting on him to carry on the bloodline. Selling his kidney would be a problem for him to take care of himself in the future. Tang Yin paused, not expecting her mother to ask Lin Yi for a loan. It wasn't 3,000 or 5,000, it was 150,000. How was she supposed to ask for it? How was she supposed to pay it back even if she did? It was such a large sum, and she couldn't possibly pay it back. "Auntie, who's Lin Yi?" Dan hadn't heard of the name before. Who in the world could borrow 150,000 in one go? "He's your Tang Yin's sis boyfriend, he's pretty rich." Mrs. Tang explained. "Mom, Lin Yi isn't my boyfriend, we're not related." Tang Yin blushed as she looked at her mother. How could she say something like that? "He gave you a phone already, how is he not your boyfriend?" Mrs. Tang was panicking as she looked at her daughter. "Yin, you're not going to abandon your brother, are you? Are you going to watch him sell his kidney?" Chapter 342. Being forced to tease your boyfriend. Borrowing money from him is a good way to test him and see if he's sincere towards you. Mrs. Tang said. Look at Wei, he's willing to sell his kidney for Dan. What's wrong with Lin Yi lending you some money? Tang Yin bit her lip and looked at her father, hoping that he'd say something for her. Juqing, however, lowered his head, looking like a good old man who'd been bullied. Juqing was blaming himself for his uselessness as well. If he were successful in his career, the family wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Sis, is brother-in-law really that rich? Wei couldn't help but ask after hearing his aunt's words. Who would sell their kidney if there was any other hope? Little Wei was forced to sell his kidney because he had no other choice. However, if he could solve the problem by not selling it, he would not be so stupid as to sell his kidney. Wei, don't listen to my mom, he's not your brother-in-law, he's just a classmate. Tang Yin felt conflicted as she looked at Wei's hopeful eyes. She knew that if she were to borrow money from Lin Yi, then their relationship would become complicated. But if she didn't borrow money, Wei would have to sell his kidney. Sis, why don't you ask him? Little Wei was sure that the person his aunt was talking about was his sister's boyfriend. Even if he wasn't, it wasn't far from the truth. Wei, it's not that I don't want to help you, but how am I going to pay him back? Do we even have money to pay him back? Tang Yin sighed. Sis, he'll become my brother-in-law sooner or later. You're already his woman, he won't force you to pay him back, right? Wei looked at Tang Yin. Plus, Dan and I have hands and feet, we'll be able to pay him back one day. Yeah, Yin, your brother didn't ask you for anything, it's just a small matter. Why are you so stubborn? Mrs. Tang was getting anger. There was a way to solve the problem, so why did she have to force her brother to sell his kidney? If you don't make this call, I'll call him. You're forcing me. Tang Yun's eyes reddened as tears welled up in her eyes. You don't understand at all. You don't know what's going on. Tang Yin wanted to say that Lin Yi might not even be able to be with her in the future, but she didn't say it in the end. Yuner, how can this be called forcing you? Do you think I would harm you? Mrs. Tang was a little unhappy. She wasn't asking her to do anything bad, but she could borrow money from Lin Yi. What was going on? I'll make a call, okay? Tang Yin stood up and ran out of the house with her phone. She couldn't help but start sobbing when she reached the yard. His mother didn't understand, and his younger brother didn't understand either. They thought that they had some kind of reputation to be able to get Lin Yi to lend them 150,000 yuan. Did they even think about their own situation? Although it was true that Lin Yi liked her now, at the end of the day, her relationship with Lin Yi hadn't even been officially confirmed. Why would he lend her 150,000 yuan? It wasn't a small amount, and if she could borrow it, she would have borrowed it from her father a long time ago. Why would she wait until now? After crying, Tang Yin still dialed Lin Yi's number. No matter what, she couldn't let her brother sell his kidney, could she? Lin Yi replied to Tang Yin's message, but she didn't reply for a long time. He thought that she didn't see it, but he didn't expect her to call him. Hello? Tang Yin. Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised that Tang Yin called him. It was a good start. Why are you calling me? Do you miss me? Tang Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Lin Yi's words. Her sad mood brightened up a lot. Who misses you? Stop being so smug. Ha. Lin Yi smiled. Why are you calling me so late at night? Lin Yi actually understood Tang Yin quite well. She was an introverted girl, strong but not good at expressing her feelings. If there was nothing, she wouldn't call him, at least not now. Lin Yi. I have something to ask of you. Tang Yin's heart sank as she thought about what she was going to say next. Something to ask of me. Lin Yi was startled. This wasn't like Tang Yin's personality. Can you lend me 150,000 yuan? Don't worry, I will definitely return it to you, I promise. Tang Yin hesitated and said her request 150,000 yuan. Lin Yi was even more stunned. This was even more out of Tang Yin's character. He gave her a phone before, but she didn't want to accept it. Why would she suddenly want to borrow money from him? However, this indirectly meant that Tang Yin must have encountered some trouble that she couldn't resist. Otherwise, she would have to die to borrow money from him. Tang Yin wasn't a greedy girl. If she was, she would have been corrupted by society long ago. I really need this money. My brother is in some trouble. If I don't have this money, he will have to sell his kidney. Tang Yin thought that Lin Yi misunderstood her as a greedy girl and quickly explained. Sell his kidney. Lin Yi almost fainted. Tell him not to do anything stupid. Money isn't a problem. Give me your account number, I will ask someone to transfer it to you right now. If it was a few days ago, Lin Yi wouldn't have this much confidence. But now, Lin Yi had just extorted 100 million yuan from Lu Tianyi. This time, it was Tang Yin's turn to be stunned. She didn't think that Lin Yi would agree to transfer the money to her without asking about the specifics. Did he trust her that much? Wasn't he afraid that she would lie to him? What? It's only 150,000 yuan. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Tang Yin lying to him because he knew Tang Yin's personality. Then. Wait a minute. Tang Yin was very excited. Her face was red. She had mustered up her courage to ask Lin Yi for the money. She was afraid that Lin Yi would reject her and that Lin Yi would find it difficult to borrow money from her. Although Lin Yi was a rich kid, not every rich kid could take out 150,000 yuan in one go. But Lin Yi seemed to have accepted it easily, without hesitation at all. This made Tang Yin sigh in relief. At the same time, she was very grateful to Lin Yi. Mom, Lin Yi said he wants a bank account number. Tang Yin couldn't help but smile when she said that. Chapter 343. Chapter 343, Worries of Happiness. On one hand, she felt very happy and sweet. Fen's ex-boyfriend didn't even lend her 20,000 when her family asked for it, let alone 150,000. Although her words were sweet, in the end, Xiaofen still ended up in such a state. Thinking back, other than being a little domineering, Lin Yi didn't seem to have said anything sweet to her at all. But in critical moments, when she needed help, when she was the most helpless, Lin Yi would always appear at the right time. On the other hand, Tang Yin felt that she owed Lin Yi a lot, to the point where she couldn't pay him back. Tang Yin didn't think that she would be able to pay Lin Yi back in a couple of years, nor did she think that Wei and the others would be able to pay her back. Was it really like what her brother said? She was his now, and didn't need to pay him back. It was easy to say, but difficult to do. You borrowed it already. Mrs. Tang thought that her daughter would have to pay a price to talk to Lin Yi personally. Mrs. Tang wasn't an idiot. She had seen through the fickleness of the world, and while it was a bit like she was pushing her daughter into a pit of fire, it wasn't entirely the case. Lin Yi was different from the Kong Ming Xiaofen knew. He wouldn't leave her after playing with her, would he? Besides, Xiao Wei was the only son in her family. As his aunt, if she didn't stop him from selling his kidney, her father wouldn't let her go. In her family in the countryside, the patriarchal concept was very strong. Mrs. Tang didn't think that her daughter would borrow the money with just a phone call. She was happy and surprised, but also regretful. I should have borrowed 50,000 more, and we could have done the surgery for your dad, Mom. Tang Yun frowned unhappily. Did she think that Lin Yi was some kind of money tree, that he could borrow as much as he wanted? Girl, are you stupid? can't you borrow more than once? Mrs. Tang was thinking that the money couldn't be borrowed for free, so she might as well borrow more. Mom, what are you talking about? Tang Yun panicked. If you keep this up, I won't borrow any more, not a single cent. All right, I won't say any more. Mrs. Tang looked at her daughter resentfully. She thought to herself, why can't my daughter see the light? Get more money when he likes you, and you'll have money even if he doesn't want you anymore. Mrs. Tang couldn't be blamed for having such snobbish thoughts. Anyone would have the same thoughts if they had to support a family like this on their own. Mrs. Tang was really scared of being poor. She didn't want to be poor anymore. Love was important, but without money, what was there left? If it weren't for the fact that she still loved old Tang, she would have divorced him a long time ago. But, so what? Old Tang wasn't the only one injured in the factory. How many families had already divorced? That was why Mrs. Tang was encouraging Tang Yin to ask Lin Yi for the money. In her mind, getting the money in her hands was the only thing that mattered. How could she not know what her mother was thinking? But Tang Yun couldn't understand her mother's thoughts. The hardships of life hadn't erased her self-reliance. But right now, Tang Yun still couldn't understand her mother's thoughts. The hardships of life hadn't erased Tang Yun's self-reliance. Tang Yun, what's wrong? 150,000 isn't enough. Lin Yi heard Mrs. Tang's nagging and asked with a smile. No, don't listen to my mom. Tang Yun remembered that she was still holding the phone, and that Lin Yi had heard her conversation with her mother. She was embarrassed and angry at her mother's greed for money. Mrs. Tang found a bank card. They only had 20,000 in savings, and this was the only card they had. She carefully hid it under the mattress. Ian, give me the phone. Mrs. Tang said as she tried to snatch the phone from Tang Yun. Tang Yun wouldn't give the phone to her mother. She didn't know what her mother would say if she gave it to her. Give it to me, I'll read the card number to him. Mrs. Tang had no choice but to give the card to Tang Yun. Tang Yun was about to read the card number to Lin Yi when Lin Yi said, text it to me, in case the transfer is wrong and the money's gone. I'll send it to you then. Tang Yun jumped. She didn't know that Lin Yi was only teasing her. The card number didn't match the name, so the transfer couldn't be made. Lin Yi dialed Xuemin's number after receiving the card number from Tang Yun. Where have you been these 2 days? I called you, but your phone was turned off. Guan Xuemin's voice came through the phone before Lin Yi could say anything. Oh. Grandpa Guan, what's up? Lin Yi didn't think that Guan Xuemin would look for him these 2 days. Yesterday, Lu Tianyi brought Elder Lu over. Elder Lu wanted to thank you personally. After he went back, he noticed that his body was much better. Not only did he eat more, but he also walked like he was flying. It was like he was 10 years younger. Guan Xuemin exclaimed, I'm envious of your medical skills. They came to thank me. Lin Yi smiled. It was probably because House Lu realized his value and wanted to build a good relationship with him. Although there was some unhappiness before, House Lu wasn't stupid. They knew how to make up for it. Yeah, they're going back to Yanjing. There's no use for the villa they bought here anymore, so they wanted to give it to you as a thank you gift. Guan Xuemin said, just give me your ID number and I'll help you with the transfer. They're being generous now, Lin Yi shrugged, but I'm short on money now. It's more practical to give me some money. Yes, Lu Tianyi gave you another 10 million, Guan Xuemin laughed. Chapter 344. Thank you, brother-in-law, right, what did you call me for? I was too busy talking about my business. Xuemin suddenly remembered that it was Lin Yi who called him. It's like this, Grandpa Guan. I'll give you an account number, can you transfer 200,000 to me? Lin Yi told Xiumin the account number Tang Yun had sent him. Yeah, alright. I'll have Axian transfer the money to you through online banking. Xiumin said without even asking what Lin Yi was planning on doing after writing down the account number. Thank you, Grandpa Guan. As for the medicine company, I'll go talk to you when I have time in the next couple of days. I don't know anything about operations, so I'll have to trouble you. Lin Yi was a bit embarrassed that he could get a share of the money just by providing the prescription. If you don't want to be involved in the operations, it's best if you find a spokesperson. I'm an old man, and I can take care of things on the surface for you, but the actual sales are better for you youngsters. Xiumin smiled bitterly. I'll be honest with you. I'm an old scholar, and I might not be as good as you are when it comes to business. I see. Lin Yi had only thought of this after hearing Xiumin's suggestion. He'd only wanted to use Xiumin's name and provide the prescriptions himself to start a medicine company, but things weren't as simple as he'd thought after hearing Xiumin's words. He'd have the reputation and the medicine, but he'd still need to know how to run it. Yeah, my youngest son is a suitable candidate, Xian's father. But I don't want him to get involved in this, Xiumin suggested. If you don't want to manage it yourself, you need to find someone you can trust to keep an eye on it. Hiring a manager is fine too. Grandpa Guan, isn't Guan Xian a shareholder of the company? She can keep an eye on it for me. Lin Yi suddenly remembered that Guan Xian was a shareholder of the company as well, and so he turned his attention to her. Even if Xian is a shareholder, she still represents me. You'll need to find someone else to represent you. Oh right, if you have time, come over for a bit. I'll send some of the drugs to be tested and approved. Guan Xiumin smiled. No problem. How about this weekend? Lin Yi thought for a moment. It shouldn't take long to accompany Kong Xiaobo to his second grandpa's birthday banquet. Then, he could go to Guan Xiumin's place to have a look. He still had some healing potions with him, and he hadn't finished using the ones he'd made last time. As for the painkiller Huaijuan was using, Xiumin had the recipe already, and he'd probably be making some first. In the initial stage, it was better to market these two drugs. If there were too many, it would not be able to highlight the magic of each drug. It was only after these two drugs became a hit that other new products were introduced one after another that people would pay more attention to them. Guan Xian took the account card from her grandpa and looked at the username. It was Tang Yun's name. She felt a little disappointed and a little jealous, but she still did as Lin Yi said and transferred 200,000. Mrs. Tang's bank card was opened under Tang Yun's name. Tang Yun used it to store her red packets and pocket money, but after Juqing got injured, Tang Yun donated all the red packets she'd accumulated over the years. Mrs. Tang was too lazy to open a new account, so she used Tang Yun's card as the family's savings card. Beep beep. A message notification sounded. This card was originally bound to Tang Juqing's phone. Juqing took out his phone and looked at the message. He was a little surprised. 200,000. 200,000. Mrs. Tang was surprised at first, but then she was overjoyed. She quickly grabbed her lover's phone and looked at the number on it carefully. She counted the number of zeros on it again and again until she was sure that it was 200,000 not 20,000. She said happily. I told you that Lin Yi is a good person. You only asked for 150,000, but he transferred 200,000 to you. It seems like he heard what I said just now. Tang Yun looked at her mother's happy face. She didn't know if she should be happy with her or helpless. 200,000. She couldn't afford it. Old Tang, you have the surgery fees. Let's go to the hospital tomorrow. The happiest person was Mrs. Tang. Her lover's surgery fees were finally settled. After the surgery, her lover would be able to stand up again. She wouldn't have to worry about the family alone. Sis, is brother-in-law really a rich second generation? Wei was surprised as well. He felt like he was dreaming. It was just a thought before. He didn't believe that his sister would be able to borrow 150,000 just like that. He didn't think that his sister would be even more influential. He borrowed 150,000 and got 200,000. What rich second generation? Tang Yun glared at him. He's not your brother-in-law either. You still have to pay him back. Hey, sis, you're shy. Wei smiled and nodded. Of course I have to. Dan and I have to live frugally. We'll pay him back. What do you know, you brat? Tang Yun snorted. But then she remembered that Wei wasn't a brat. He was only half a year younger than her, and he and Dan had been dating for a long time. It seemed like he was more experienced than her. Sis, thank brother-in-law for me. When he comes, you have to tell Dan and me. We have to thank him in person. Wei laughed. Yeah, Tang Yin sis, I really have to thank him. Dan felt like she was dreaming as well. An hour ago, Wei was still trying to sell his kidney, but now he'd raised the money. Tang Yun's chest hurt as she looked at her mother and brother's happy faces. Was it right or wrong for her to do this? Was this what they meant by sacrificing herself for the happiness of the whole family? Tang Yun gripped her phone tightly as she walked out of the house. She went to the yard again and hesitated. But Lin Yi didn't call. Tang Yun was annoyed. Didn't this guy treat money like it was money? He transferred 200,000 and he didn't even call to check if it was in the account. What if he lost it? Tang Yun dialed Lin Yi's number again. Hello? Lin Yi? Tang Yun saw that Lin Yi didn't respond and asked. Lin Yi responded. What are you doing? Why aren't you talking? Tang Yun was confused. Drink some water, it's done. Lin Yi put down the cup in his hand. Tang Yun's call came in while he was drinking. She didn't dare to go back into the house immediately, afraid that her mother and the others would notice. She could only stand in the yard and calm herself down. A mosquito flew by, wanting to bite Tang Yun's fair skin. Tang Yun was so angry that she swung out her palm, wanting to kill the mosquito. Lin Yi, you're so annoying. Why are you so nice to me? I'll slap you to death. Mrs. Tang saw that Tang Yun went to the yard and didn't come back for a long time, so she told Wei to go check on his sister. Wei had just walked out of the house when he heard Tang Yun baring her fangs and claws, saying that she wanted to slap Lin Yi to death. Wei jumped as he looked at his sister. Is brother-in-law a masochist? He's so nice to you, and you want to slap him to death? What do you know, you brat? Tang Yun didn't think that Wei would come out and hear her. She was embarrassed. Hurry up and go back. Oh. I get it. Hitting is affection, scolding is love. Dan always says that too. Wei nodded in realization. Tang Yun was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Wei happily went back with Dan. Mrs. Tang had already promised them that she would go get the money for them the next morning. Wei, naturally, pushed the matter of selling his kidney away. In a villa on the outskirts of Songshan City, a man with tattoos all over his body received a phone call. He ran to a young man. Bro, we agreed to sell our kidneys, but that kid went back on his words. What? He went back on his words. The young man called Bro frowned. What are you doing? You can't even do such a simple thing. If the Fire Wolf gang gets angry, even my father won't be able to bear the consequences. The supply of kidneys has decreased a lot recently. If this continues, my brother's supply will far surpass us. When bro, I don't want to either. But no one is selling their kidneys anymore. People are smarter now. They won't sell their kidneys unless they need money. The tattooed man explained carefully. Are you stupid? How many kidneys could there be in such a scattered manner? When I was studying abroad, I saw a large-scale kidney trafficking organization there. If no one is selling, why don't you find someone else to do it? When bro scolded. When bro, isn't this a bit too cruel? If we get targeted by the police, we'll be in big trouble. The tattooed man was shocked when he heard When bro's suggestion. Even when the bro was here, he didn't dare to be this reckless. The bro your ass. My When bro is in charge now. Don't talk about my brother all the time. When bro sneered. If he didn't trick people to sell their kidneys on a large scale, would the supply of kidneys in Songsan be so tight now? Yes. Yes. The tattooed man accidentally blurted it out. He then remembered that although Brother De and Brother Wen were biological brothers, they were in a competitive relationship. If you're afraid of the police, why don't you catch those beggars and homeless people? As long as they don't die, no one will care. When bro said in disdain. Who's the underground boss of Songsan? Contact him, I'll pay him a visit. The underground boss of Songsan is Li Zihua, but he doesn't make the decisions. His boss is in the provincial capital. I don't know who he is, but I heard that he's quite powerful. The tattooed man introduced. When bro, are you going to visit him tonight? Chapter 346. An uninvited guest, yes. The tattooed guy nodded respectfully. When bro, where are you going tonight? Can I give you a ride? No need, I have some private stuff to do today. When bro waved his hand. Don't follow me. Yes, when bro. I'll get you a car then. The tattooed guy asked carefully. Well, drive that Ferrari sports car out for me. Brother Wen ordered. Tonight, however, there was an uninvited guest in Meng Yao's villa. The doorbell rang, and it was Meng Yao, who was upstairs lecturing Yushu. She was very displeased with Yushu for running around naked in the house. Shu, you're 19 already, you can't do that anymore. Do you understand? I understand, Yao Yao. Yushu nodded with a smile. Look at you, you're all smiles whenever I talk about you, but in the end, that big bad guy Lin Yi has it easy. Meng Yao glared at Lin Yi. Be careful not to let him take nude photos of you. Let's see what you'll do then. Oh. Yao Yao, someone's ringing the doorbell downstairs. Should we go take a look? Yushu changed the topic again. What's there to look at? There's Lin Yi running errands for us, what's the rush? Meng Yao didn't think much of it. Oh. It must be Faubert delivering food. I'm hungry, let's go downstairs. Yushu held her stomach, looking like she was about to faint. I'm starving. Meng Yao shook her head and pulled Yushu downstairs. Lin Yi heard someone ringing the doorbell, so he walked out of his room to open the door. He paused when he reached the yard, because it wasn't Faubert, nor was it someone he knew. It was that Jiang Wen he met at the theme park the other day. Jiang Wen. Lin Yi blinked. Why was he here? Jiang Wen, on the other hand, saw that it was Lin Yi who'd come out to open the door. He was at Meng Yao's house. This gave Jiang Wen a bad premonition. He and Meng Yao had progressed to the point where they were living together. And in Meng Yao's villa. Did Pingzhan know about all of this? On the surface, however, Jiang Wen was still smiling warmly. He wouldn't reveal his true feelings. Oh. Isn't this Mr. Lin Yi? What a coincidence, you're here too. I live here. Lin Yi glanced at him and said faintly. How could Lin Yi not hear this guy's probing tone? What a coincidence. As expected, Jiang Wen's expression froze. He already had a bad feeling about this, but he was still hoping for luck. Now, he was absolutely certain that Lin Yi lived here. Jiang Wen clenched his fists. He'd only been abroad for 3 years, and someone else was already there. The former 4 young masters of Pine Mountain had been stolen just like that. Ha, so you're living with Yao Yao now, Mr. Lin. Jiang Wen felt like his heart was bleeding. Even if he won against Lin Yi, he'd still be marrying a second-hand woman. Are you here to check on me? Lin Yi frowned. Why did this guy have so much to say? What do you want? It's like this. You and Yao Yao saved me that day, so I came to thank you. Jiang Wen forced down the unhappiness in his heart and smiled as he raised the gift in his hand to Lin Yi. Look, I still have something. Let me in first. Lin Yi smiled coldly in his heart. Thank you. You probably didn't even know I lived here a minute ago. What are you thanking me for? You're here to pick up girls, so why are you being so fake? But Lin Yi didn't expose him. What the guy was here for didn't have much to do with him. Lin Yi opened the door and let Jiang Wen in. I wonder if Mr. Chu is home. Jiang Wen asked again after entering the room. Who are you here for? Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen with disdain. Uncle Chu doesn't live here. Go to the company if you're looking for him. Oh. He doesn't live here anymore. Jiang Wen really did want to ask where Pingzhan was. After all, Pingzhan used to live with Meng Yao before he left the country. Lin Yi ignored him and entered the villa first, letting Jiang Wen follow him. As for the gift in Jiang Wen's hand, Lin Yi wasn't in the mood to take it. It didn't matter who it was for. Meng Yao and Yushu had come downstairs by now, surprised to see Jiang Wen behind Lin Yi. Jiang Wen bro, why are you here? Meng Yao didn't like Jiang Wen very much. Jiang Wen didn't feel like the boy next door anymore. There was an indescribable dark aura around him that made Meng Yao uncomfortable. I really have to thank you and Mr. Lin at the theme park last time. I'm here to thank you. Jiang Wen said with a smile as he placed the gift on the coffee table in the living room. It was all foreign nourishment products, and it didn't look like something for young people. Lin Yi guessed that this guy might be here to visit Pingzhan, but Pingzhan didn't live here anymore. Jiang Wen bro, when did you become so fake? You wouldn't have done this before. Meng Yao said faintly. She felt that the distance between her and Jiang Wen was getting bigger and bigger. They weren't like siblings anymore. You're telling me that you're going to do nothing if I'm sick. That's because I'm too old-fashioned. Jiang Wen felt that he hadn't thought things through. He didn't even know where Pingzhan lived before coming here. These things weren't suitable for Meng Yao, but it was even more inappropriate to take them back. But these are things I brought back from abroad. It's fresh. Oh. Yao Yao, these things are worth a lot, right? Why don't we sell them? Yushu asked curiously as she looked at the gifts on the coffee table. Shoo. Meng Yao glared at her. Even if you didn't like Jiang Wen, you still had to give him some face, right? Jiang Wen's mouth twitched. He was completely helpless against Yushu. He couldn't piss her off, and she was Meng Yao's best friend. He didn't dare piss her off. Hee hee. Yushu giggled, ignoring Jiang Wen as she turned on the TV. The atmosphere in the villa turned cold all of a sudden. You guys talk, I'm going back to my room. Lin Yi stood up and walked to his room. Talking to this Jiang Wen was a waste of time. Chapter 347. Image collapse. Lin Yi really wanted to yell at him. What the hell did it have to do with you where I lived? But this was Meng Yao's villa, and Lin Yi gave the miss some face. He looked at Jiang Wen and ignored him. Meng Yao, naturally, knew what Jiang Wen wanted to know, but couldn't be bothered to answer the question. But Jiang Wen, evidently, didn't have any self-awareness. He continued asking after Lin Yi didn't reply. Yao Yao, don't you guys sleep together at night? Meng Yao frowned, but Yushu spoke up first. I sleep with Yao Yao. Jiang Wen almost teared up at Yushu's words. He wanted to say, good person, really good person. Shu, Jiang Wen bro has known you for so many years, and you've finally said something that makes Jiang Wen bro happy. You're just too good. Jiang Wen knew that his questions were a bit inappropriate, but he had to understand the relationship between Lin Yi and Meng Yao. This was related to his love, after all. He couldn't be careless. Ha, so you're saying that Mr. Lin isn't your boyfriend? Jiang Wen could see something from Meng Yao's attitude towards Lin Yi. He felt that Lin Yi didn't seem like Meng Yao's boyfriend at all. Meng Yao frowned. Jiang Wen bro, what do you want to know? Meng Yao was getting annoyed as well. Wasn't he just trying to confirm her relationship with Lin Yi? Then I'll just tell him and let him leave as soon as he understands. Didn't Shu tell you very clearly last time? The more Meng Yao said, the more confused Jiang Wen got. Where did this Lin Yi come from? Was he really Meng Yao's boyfriend or not? To be honest, Jiang Wen didn't really believe Yushu's words. After all, the girl didn't even bat an eyelid when it came to lying. She said something about bodyguard and shield last time, and that had a lot of different meanings. Jiang Wen didn't have the time to think about it last time at the theme park restaurant, but the way Meng Yao and Lin Yi looked at each other and didn't seem like a couple at all. So, Yushu was saying that Lin Yi was just Meng Yao's bodyguard. Or was it a shield to drive away those suitors? The more Jiang Wen thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. He wanted to pay a visit and get some information from Pingzhan, but Pingzhan wasn't here. He could only start from the person in question. Hee, I'm just asking casually. I don't have any other intentions. I'm just helping you check on him. Jiang Wen smiled. You're my lil sis, of course I'll help you take a look at your boyfriend. Oh, then take a look. Meng Yao was very annoyed. Jiang Wen hadn't been this annoying before, so why was he so impatient after coming back from abroad? Meng Yao could feel that Jiang Wen had feelings for her before, but Jiang Wen had never been this impatient before. Of course, Meng Yao misunderstood Jiang Wen. Jiang Wen was impatient because he saw his love rival. There weren't any suitors around Meng Yao that could be a rival, so Jiang Wen wasn't impatient at all. He thought that Meng Yao would be his sooner or later, and it didn't matter if it was sooner or later. But now, it was different. Lin Yi's appearance had completely messed up Jiang Wen's plans. He couldn't help but panic. From the looks of it, Lin Yi and Meng Yao didn't have a deep relationship yet. If he didn't panic now, wouldn't he be giving up? Alright. If that's the case, I'll invite Mr. Lin Yi out for dinner tomorrow night. I want to thank him for saving my life, and I also want to help you check on him. Jiang Wen said. Yao Yao, what do you think? Give your guy a break. He can go if he wants, what does it have to do with me? Meng Yao said nonchalantly. Alright, I'll go talk to him. Jiang Wen heard Meng Yao's words and felt relieved. Meng Yao didn't care about Lin Yi at all. It meant that the two weren't as close as he thought. With that, Jiang Wen stood up and walked towards Lin Yi's room. He knocked on the door, and Lin Yi opened it to see Jiang Wen. What do you need? It's like this. Are you free tomorrow night? I'll treat you to dinner to express my gratitude. Jiang Wen smiled as he patted Lin Yi's shoulder. What do you think, Mr. Lin? Do me the honor. You're treating me to dinner. Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen like he was an idiot. Do you have too much money to burn? I'm not going. Jiang Wen was a little embarrassed by Lin Yi's words. Mr. Lin, Yao Yao agreed to it. Are you saying that because you're afraid that she won't? That was what he said, but Jiang Wen was feeling a little disdainful inside. Who the hell was this guy? Trying to steal Meng Yao from me. If I don't show you what I'm capable of, you country bumpkin wouldn't know your place. Oh. The miss agreed. Lin Yi paused and looked at Meng Yao. She nodded at him. Lin Yi had no choice but to say, all right, tomorrow then. Where are we eating? Meng Yao actually didn't want Lin Yi to eat with Jiang Wen. Whether they ate or not had nothing to do with Meng Yao. The problem was that she was really annoyed with Jiang Wen. He kept asking questions in front of her. She might as well let him ask Lin Yi tomorrow. She needed to leave as soon as possible. She still needed to rest. Tomorrow night at 6, I'll wait for you here on time. We'll decide on the location tomorrow. Jiang Wen was even more confused. This Lin Yi didn't seem like someone who took orders from others. Why did he agree without a second thought when Meng Yao asked him to go? Could it be that this guy was really just a bodyguard and not Meng Yao's boyfriend? At that thought, Jiang Wen felt that it was very possible. Yushu's words couldn't be trusted, and Lin Yi might really have nothing to do with Meng Yao. Oh, okay. Lin Yi nodded. If this guy wanted to treat, then so be it. He'd eat his way out of the house tomorrow. How about I bring a brother with me? Sure, no problem. Jiang Wen nodded, agreeing to it. After getting Lin Yi's answer, Jiang Wen was satisfied. Meng Yao, on the other hand, had to walk him to the door out of politeness. She sighed in relief after Jiang Wen left. You're asking me to eat with him tomorrow? Lin Yi asked. He felt that Meng Yao was acting a little strange. Chapter 348. Just who was her brother? Jiang Wen was making Meng Yao feel really bored and confused right now. Who was Lin Yi? That was her personal business, what did it have to do with him? Checking up on her. Did she need him checking up on her? Geez, I thought you had some ulterior motive for asking me to eat with him. Lin Yi was a little speechless. I shouldn't have said yes if I'd known. Well, it's fine. You go teach him a lesson tomorrow, he's been an eyesore for a long time now. Yushu raised her fist. He's nothing much, but he's so cocky, thinking that the song's Han Young Master title's something. Isn't he just picking the biggest one out of the bunch? Shoo, your brother's the head of the song's Han Young Masters. Meng Yao said as she looked at Yushu, speechless. My brother. I don't think he's as strong as Shield Bro, he can't even handle that Ling Shan girl. One word from Shield Bro and that song girl's so obedient. Yushu said excitedly at the mention of Ling Shan. Shoo, why do I get the feeling that Yutian isn't your real brother, but Lin Yi is? Meng Yao frowned, her best friend couldn't have fallen for Lin Yi, could she? She was talking about Lin Yi every time she opened her mouth, getting touched, kissed, and hugged by him, and she didn't feel any disgust towards him at all. Was Shu falling for him? Hee. Of course he's my real brother. I admire him a lot, but he's just too weak in front of women. Wouldn't Song Girl give in to him if he were a little tougher? Yushu said with a smile, not caring at all. Shu, you're a girl too. Do you want to be a strict husband in the future? Or do you have masochistic tendencies? Meng Yao said. She was a girl, but she was speaking up for a man. What kind of logic was that? Yao, I just want Shield Bro to break that Jiang Wen spirit tomorrow. Yushu said. Oh, I misspoke, Jiang Wen Bro. Lin Yi ignored the two girls and yawned before going back to his room to sleep. Shield Bro, I support you. I'll wait for your good news tomorrow night. Yushu called out. Shu, you know Jiang Wen's family background. You're just causing trouble for Lin Yi. Meng Yao frowned helplessly. He's not Zhong Pingliang, not someone Lin Yi can deal with easily. What if something happens to Lin Yi if you drag him into this? Meng Yao may have been indifferent towards Lin Yi on the surface, even a little disgusted, but she wasn't an unreasonable person. Plus, she didn't hate Lin Yi living in this house anymore. Naturally, she wouldn't cause trouble for him. Although her father had kept it a secret from her and didn't tell her what Lin Yi had been up to these past 2 days, she still knew a little about the crisis her father was facing. Lin Yi had solved it all quietly, so how could she cause more trouble for him? Hee, Yao Yao, are you worried? Yushu's eyebrows and eyes turned into crescents as she smiled at Meng Yao. My heart aches. Why would I? Meng Yao humphed. He's our follower, and now that he's pissed off Jiang Wen, of course we'll have to protect him when Jiang Wen comes looking for trouble. So if you let him go looking for trouble, you'll be looking for trouble for us. Oh, it's fine. I'll deal with Jiang Wen bro next time. Yushu took it all on. She was quite good at dealing with Jiang Wen. Alright, let's go to sleep. Meng Yao yawned as well. It was already past 10, and Jiang Wen had been dawdling for more than an hour. Meng Yao was tired to death. The next day, when Lin Yi saw Kong Xiaobo, the kid was overjoyed. Boss, you're back. I was afraid that you wouldn't make it to my second grandpa's birthday party. I won't, I said 2 days, so it's 2 days. It's only Thursday, there's still a few days left. Right, is it Saturday or Sunday? Lin Yi asked. Sunday, but it's not in the city. We'll leave early on Saturday. My second grandpa's house is in Donghai, Kong Xiaobo said. Alright, we'll leave Saturday afternoon then. Lin Yi nodded. Right, how's fun? She can leave the hospital now. Her body was too weak due to malnutrition. I'm going to get her discharged this afternoon. Kong Xiaobo said. My parents are coming with me on Saturday, and I don't know how to tell them about fun. I don't know if they'll accept it, I don't think that's important. What's important is what you think. Lin Yi waved his hand. Xiaobo, do you really like fun? Tell me the truth. Kong Xiaobo hesitated. Nonsense, why would I ask you if you don't tell me the truth? Lin Yi glared at him. To be honest, when I first saw her picture, I was just moved. After all, it's normal to want to pursue a beautiful girl. Kong Xiaobo scratched his head in embarrassment. Just like how I used to like Tang Yun, Chu Mengyao, and Qin Yushu. But I know that it's just a fantasy. None of them will like me. If it wasn't for you, Tang Yun might not even recognize me now. I liked fun. At first, I sympathized with her because she's too pitiful, unlovable. So, I couldn't help but want to give her more care and love. It's just that after a long time, I went to the hospital every day to accompany her, talk to her, and eat with her. I gradually got used to this feeling. If I don't see her for a day, I'll miss her. I think I can confirm that I like her. Do you like her or love her? Lin Yi asked. Is there a difference? Kong Xiaobo shook his head blankly. Maybe there's a difference. Lin Yi sighed. He used to like a girl, the kind that he liked very much. She was Xiaoning. People say that you can sacrifice anything for love. So, Lin Yi sometimes thought that his feelings for Xiaoning couldn't be considered love. But if it wasn't love, why would he always think of her? Was it the rules of the industry that restricted him? He had to abide by his professional ethics, or he didn't have the courage to take that step. Maybe it was both. Or, he couldn't give Xiaoning the life she wanted. At least, he couldn't give it back then. But now... Lin Yi shook his head. Although he knew that escaping wasn't the solution, he had chosen to escape all these years. It was even more impossible for Lin Yi to take that step. Tang Yun wanted to borrow money, and he believed that as long as she asked, there would be a lot of rich secret admirers in the school who would take the initiative to ask her out. At noon, Kong Xiaobo was going to the hospital to handle the discharge procedures for Xiaofan. He also wanted to talk about going to the birthday party this weekend. Lin Yi, on the other hand, accepted Tang Yun's invitation and came to the shade of a tree next to the field. Tang Yun didn't want to wait in front of the cafeteria, so she asked Lin Yi to wait here. This was the place where the two of them had their first date. It wasn't really a date, but Tang Yun had some special feelings for this place. It was also at that time that Lin Yi held her hand and announced in front of Zhou Ruoming and Wang Jifeng that she was his woman. Tang Yun was a bit nervous. She held the meal card in her hand and couldn't sit still. The 5th class in the morning was a test. Tang Yun handed in her paper first and waited under the tree. She waited for a long time, but she didn't see Lin Yi. Tang Yun looked at her phone. Could it be that Lin Yi sent her a text and she didn't receive it? But it didn't seem possible. Just as Tang Yun was getting anxious, she saw a boy running towards her. Tang Yun smiled and waved at Lin Yi. If it was before, Tang Yun wouldn't dare to do something like this in school. The school rules were very strict. But now, the school rules were useless in front of Tang Yun. Wang Jifeng didn't even care about her and Lin Yi. What was there for her to be afraid of? Tang Yun even had a little rebellious in her heart. She had been a good student for so many years, and she could finally let loose like those bad students. Did you wait long? Lin Yi saw a layer of sweat on Tang Yun's forehead. It was obvious that she had waited for a while. Not really. The last class was a test, so I handed in my paper first. Tang Yun said shyly as she combed her hair. Then why didn't you text me? I would have come out earlier. He'd gotten used to skipping class. The dean had already given him a warning, and the teachers of the other subjects didn't bother with him, thinking that he was some rich young master who was here to kill time. It's fine, Tang Yun shook her head, I'll treat you. You treat me. Lin Yi looked at Tang Yun, surprised. Don't look at me like that. I can only treat you to the cafeteria. Tang Yun raised the cafeteria card in her hand. All the money at home was used for my dad's surgery. Although there might be some left over, it's hard to say if we still need money in the future. So, if you want me to treat you to a big meal, we'll have to wait until I earn my own money. Ah. No, my cafeteria card has a lot of money in it. It's the same if you use mine. It'll be a waste if you don't eat. Lin Yi took out the card from his pocket and gave it to Tang Yun. How's uncle's condition? Tang Juqing's problem was with his bones, and he needed surgery. Although Lin Yi was good at acupuncture and medicine, he couldn't perform surgery for Tang Juqing on behalf of the hospital. Why are you giving me your card? Tang Yun paused. My mom took my dad to the hospital early in the morning. He should be in the hospital now. But he's been checked regularly, and he's just waiting for surgery. I don't usually eat at the cafeteria, and I'll eat with you in the future, so I'm giving you my card, Lin Yi said. Is there anything I can help with at the hospital? I don't think so. Tang Yun shook her head, her eyes red. Lin Yi, thank you. I don't know how I can thank you. Tang Yun was really touched. Lin Yi didn't take the opportunity to threaten her, and he didn't make things difficult for her either. Why are you saying this? Lin Yi held Tang Yun's hand. Let's go eat. Chapter 350. Chapter 350. Ward and surgery. Lin Yi and Tang Yun's relationship had spread throughout the school. Their relationship wasn't a secret anymore, and Lin Yi announced that Tang Yun was his woman in front of Wang Jifeng. This kind of shocking effect made all the guys and girls who had secret relationships jealous. Quite a number of girls told their boyfriends that they'd be willing to do anything if their boyfriends could confess to them in front of Wang Jifeng like Lin Yi did. The male students who had bad intentions wanted to turn into Lin Yi immediately, but no one dared to do so after thinking about the consequences of confessing. If Lin Yi said it, it would be fine, but if she said it, she'd probably be expelled. Before, Tang Yun felt embarrassed, but after hearing the rumors from the students, she felt very happy. At least, many people were envious of her. Even Zhou Ruoming, who used to flirt with her, would walk around her now. This was all because of Lin Yi. Of course, Zhou Ruoming wasn't much, but what made everyone envious was that even Wang Jifeng would smile and nod at Tang Yun when he saw her. It was hard for Tang Yun to imagine that this was still the same dean who'd scolded her so badly after she'd splashed water all over him. In fact, Wang Jifeng couldn't say it out loud. Tang Yun was Lin Yi's girlfriend. Who knew how far they had progressed? Did they even go to a hotel? What if Lin Yi remembered the scene that morning and told Tang Yun about it? Wouldn't Tang Yun know about it? So Wang Jifeng didn't dare to offend Tang Yun. He was even more afraid that Tang Yun would hate him because of that incident. That was why he was so kind to her. The phone in Tang Yun's pocket vibrated. Tang Yun froze. Only Lin Yi, Kong Xiaobo, Lu Xinwen, Xiaofan, and her parents knew her number. She was with Lin Yi right now. Who could it be? Wait, let me take a call. Tang Yun pulled her hand out of Lin Yi's grip and took out her phone from her pocket. It was her mother's number. Mom should know that I'm at school. Why would she call me at this time? Tang Yun was confused, but still picked up the phone. Hello. Mom. Ian, are you at school? Mrs. Tang asked anxiously. Yeah, I'm at school. I'm about to go to the cafeteria for lunch. What's the matter? Tang Yun was confused after hearing her mother's tone. Are you with Lin Yi? Mrs. Tang asked. Tang Yun was even more shocked. Her mother called to ask about this. Asking me if I've been with Lin Yi. Although it was funny, Tang Yun still said shyly, yeah. Yes. That's good. Mrs. Tang sighed in relief. Here's the thing. Go talk to Lin Yi. Doesn't he know someone from the hospital? Ask him to help you find someone. Ah. Tang Yun wasn't happy after hearing her mother's request. He's already lent us the money. Just go to the hospital for the surgery. What's the point of looking for someone? Isn't it troublesome enough? Ian, you don't know how crowded the wards are. If you don't know anyone, you'll have to sleep in the hallway. You don't want your dad to sleep in the hallway, do you? Mrs. Tang heard about Lin Yi asking for a ward for Xiaofan. Also, I want to find an orthopedic doctor for your dad's surgery, but his schedule is up. He only does 2 surgeries a week. It's already booked for the second half of the year. Can you talk to Lin Yi and ask him to cut the queue for your dad? Tang Yun sighed in her heart. She didn't want to trouble Lin Yi anymore, but her mother was telling the truth. She wouldn't have to worry about finding a good doctor to operate on her dad. Lin Yi was very close to Tang Yun. When she answered the phone, he smelled the fragrance on her white neck. It made Tang Yun uncomfortable. She wanted to push Lin Yi away to stop him, but her mother's words distracted Tang Yun. She forgot to scold Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi heard Mrs. Tang's words clearly. Before Tang Yun could say anything, Lin Yi took Tang Yun's phone. I'll talk to Auntie. Tang Yun knew that Lin Yi heard it. If he picked up the phone, it meant that he was willing to help. She couldn't help but look at Lin Yi gratefully. Auntie, I'm Lin Yi. I heard what you said. Lin Yi smiled. It's nothing. It's not a problem. Tang Yin blushed a little. She was talking to her mother on the phone, and Lin Yi overheard their conversation. How close was she to Lin Yi? Her mother wouldn't think too much, right? In fact, Mrs. Tang thought too much. She thought that her daughter and Lin Yi were hugging each other. However, she didn't reprimand her daughter. Instead, she was even happier. Mrs. Tang was extremely satisfied with Lin Yi. Hearing Lin Yi agree, she was immediately happy. That's great. Lin, I'll wait for your good news. Okay, I'll make a call now. Tell me the name of the chief physician. Lin Yi smiled. The hospital room wasn't a problem. Fun was going to be discharged today. He could just give the room to Tang Juqing. The chief physician is called Su Tianda, Mrs. Tang said. If it doesn't work, we can find the deputy chief physician. Okay, I'll try. He ended the call with Mrs. Tang and called Guan Shuamin, not bothering with pleasantries. Guan Shuamin made a note of Su Tianda's name, agreeing to it without hesitation. Okay, it's done, Lin Yi said to Tang Yun. You can call your mother now. Okay, thank you. Tang Yun didn't know what to say. What else could she say other than thank him? Don't thank me next time. It feels distant. Let's meet Grandpa Guan on Sunday. Right, Guan Xian's grandfather, Lin Yi said. Ah. Guan Xian's grandfather. Tang Yun didn't know why, but she felt a little disappointed. Thinking about the relationship between Guan Xian and Lin Yi, Tang Yun felt a little jealous. Was this jealousy? Tang Yun shook her head. She didn't think that she would feel jealous one day. Tang Yun's phone rang again before she could call her mother. Chapter 351. A short period of silence. Een, what's wrong? Why don't you look happy? A mother knew her daughter's mood. Mrs. Tang immediately noticed that something was wrong with Tang Yin's voice. It's nothing. Tang Yin shook her head. Mom, can you handle the paperwork for Dad first? I'll go see you guys after school tonight. Alright, go eat with Lin then. It's already 12, you guys better eat before you starve. Mrs. Tang didn't ask much as she hung up and happily went with Dean Qin to handle the paperwork. Wang Xueming had spoken to Mrs. Tang about the medical fees. Naturally, Mrs. Tang was exempted from the medical fees, and Dean Qin was given some benefits within the scope of his duties. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Lin Yi glanced at Tang Yun and smiled. No. No. Tang Yin, naturally, wouldn't admit what she was thinking. Let's go eat. Lin Yi and Tang Yun arrived at the cafeteria. There were a lot of people in the cafeteria, and it was very noisy. But those who saw Lin Yi automatically made a path for them. Lin Yi had already surpassed the Big Four in school. Pin Liang and Zhou Ruoming had been beaten up so badly that they didn't even dare fight back. Who would dare mess with someone like that? Tang Yin ordered 2 vegetable dishes and a meat dish, along with half a kilo of rice. The two found a table and sat down. There were already 2 students eating at the table, but when they saw Lin Yi, they quickly gulped down their food and moved away. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't think that his notoriety would reach this point. In fact, Lin Yi hadn't done anything bad, nor was he a bully like Zhou Ruoming. All he did was teach Zhou Ruoming and Pin Liang a lesson. He didn't do anything else, did he? Tang Yin put the food on the table and realized that she'd been in too much of a rush. There were a lot of people in the line, so she just ordered half a kilo of rice. It was a little hard to eat now. Tang Yin wanted to get another bowl, but was afraid that Lin Yi would think that she didn't like eating with him. She was hesitating when Lin Yi spoke up. Let's eat together. You don't mind, do you? Yeah. Tang Yin shook her head. Since Lin Yi said that, she couldn't go get another bowl. She was a little shy, but she still agreed. Tang Yin carefully ate the other side of the rice, feeling countless eyes on her. There were couples eating in the cafeteria, but very few dared to eat a plate of rice in public. Lin Yi and Tang Yin didn't think about eating a plate of rice before. It was only because of their carelessness that they ended up in this situation. In fact, there weren't many students who dared to look at him directly. Who would want to mess with him? If they looked at him for too long and he misunderstood that they were interested in Tang Yun, it wouldn't be worth it to get beaten up. Tang Yin didn't have a big appetite. She ate a little and was full. She quickly put down her chopsticks and looked around. Seeing that no one was looking, she let out a sigh of relief. But now, it wasn't a matter of whether she hated Lin Yi or not. It was a matter of whether Lin Yi hated her or not. She didn't eat much and was already full. The rest of the rice would be Lin Yi's. He must eat the part that she ate. Did this count as an indirect kiss? Tang Yin felt like she had a little white rabbit in her arms. She jumped up and down. She was a little shy, but also a little excited. She thought about what she said on the phone last night. She still owed him a kiss. In what form and in what way would this kiss be given to him? Back in the hospital, Lin Yi only asked Tang Yin to kiss his face. But now that their relationship was a step closer, would he kiss her on the mouth? Tang Yin didn't dare to think about it, but she didn't feel any repulsion. She used to feel disgusted when she saw the male and female characters kissing. If a man kissed her on the mouth, she would feel disgusted. But now, she didn't feel like vomiting. Instead, she was looking forward to it. Lin Yi was afraid that Tang Yin wouldn't have enough to eat, so he ate very slowly. But after Tang Yin finished eating, he cleaned up everything on the table. Tang Yin was stunned. Are you full? Tang Yin didn't think that Lin Yi had such a big appetite. He didn't look fat, but he ate so much. I'm full, Lin Yi nodded. Then, let's go back to class. Tang Yin didn't want to leave Lin Yi like this. Let's walk around the field. Lin Yi stood up and picked up the plates. He walked out of the cafeteria with Tang Yin and left the plates at the door. The bright afternoon sun made Tang Yin squint her eyes. She put her hand in front of her forehead to block the sunlight. She looked at the students playing on the field. She felt a sense of happiness. She met Lin Yi when she was about to leave the school. Tang Yin wanted to cheer, but there was a sense of unease in her heart. It was as if Lin Yi didn't belong to her. The happiness in front of her was short-lived. In her daze, a big hand grabbed onto Tang Yin's. Tang Yin came back to her senses. She hesitated for a moment before grabbing onto the big hand. Which university do you want to go to? This was the first time Tang Yin worried about their future. She was afraid that this happiness would disappear in the blink of an eye. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. Lin Yi shook his head. He would go wherever Meng Yao went. There was no doubt about that. He smiled to make Tang Yin feel at ease. I'll go wherever you go. Yeah. Tang Yin smiled as she welcomed the sunlight. Her heart was finally at ease, but she was still worried. What if one of us doesn't get enough points? We can spend money, Lin Yi shrugged. Your worries are unnecessary. Nouveau riche. Tang Yin said with a smile, but she was happy that Lin Yi was taking her seriously. The two of them walked under the shade of the tree and found a stone step to sit down. Tang Yin seemed to have a special liking for the shade. She always liked to come here. She supported her chin with her hand and enjoyed the peace. Lin Yi stretched lazily and stayed by Tang Yun's side quietly. But, this brief moment of peace, someone wanted to destroy it.